call ourselves to order, meeting of the West Newbury Board of Selectmen, 7:07. We have a few announcements. On Thursday of this week, November 30th at 6:30 p.m. on the training field, the field near the library, there will be a tree lighting ceremony, carols, hot chocolate. Lots of people attend. It's a great event for kids. So we invite everyone to participate in that. On Friday, December 8th at 3:45 p.m., the Lieutenant Governor, Karen Polito, is going to be signing the community compact with West Newbury. Several majority of towns in the Commonwealth have already done that, and it's to institute good government practices for the town, and we have committed to doing a few of those. So the Lieutenant Governor will attend on Friday, December 8th. Update on the food drive on November 18th. Officer Mike Dwyer and Reserve Officers Mike DeNaro and Kyle Roy helped collect food. They were able to collect enough food at the food mart to fill 1.5 vehicles. Really great. The food went to the My Neighbor's Place and the West Newbury Food Pantry. Over 5,000 pounds of food and over $800 was collected. So that's fantastic. The police department, in coordination with the Marine Corps, will be collecting toys for tots that will go on through November 13th. So we would December 13th. Sorry, collecting unwrapped and new toys. The drop off at the public safety complex. Finally, Santa is coming on to the public safety complex on December 16th from 10 in the morning until noontime. Parents are encouraged to bring their children to visit Santa. So, thank you. Now, first item on the agenda. We just wanted a brief description so that people know how it works. Teresa was going to tell us about the Council on Aging Tax Work-Off Program. So basically, seniors can work in the town to work up to $1,000 of their real estate taxes, and Teresa will give us a little more of the details of it.
Teresa, please. Thank you for coming in.
Yes, thank you.
No
so
problem.
much.
Obviously, that was a little bit of a challenge.
Sorry.
Fine.
So the Senior Tax Work-Off Program has been going on since before I started here. Currently, we have 8 participants in it. We have 2 in the library, 2 in the senior center, 1 in the finance, 1 in planning, and 1 in conservation. They work up to $1,000 off of their taxes. So, and it goes by fiscal year. So I guess we're halfway through the fiscal year now that they're working towards, and they can work up to 100 hours. 100 hours a year. So twice a year I send out a notice to all the departments asking department heads if they have any need for anybody on the Senior Tax Work-Off Program. And we currently have a wait list of, I believe it's 3 or 4 people.
So 3 to 4 seniors that want to volunteer that we don't have work for them.
Correct.
We have somebody that you're using, right? Yes.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay.
If that wasn't on my list.
Okay, that's fine.
And I know that planning is, Leah's looking for somebody as well.
Just curious, do you know, how does that work tax-wise? Does the IRS consider that to be income? How does that work?
They do get a W-2 from the town.
They do.
W-2 or
A 1099?
1099, sorry.
1099,
I get those
okay.
confused. So they are considered a town employee, but we do not, I don't believe we take taxes out, but that all changed recently, and I don't deal with that part of it.
Did the amount go up from $1,000, or the eligible amount go up? I thought it went up, not for us, but was there some change, Mike, that the eligible? Yeah, right. What's our limit?
1,500.
Okay.
It is
Because she had
1,500?
1,000 on here, that's why I was
Sorry.
asking.
The municipal act is new, so.
Okay,
So it's 1,500 now?
Okay.
Good. That makes a big difference.
yes, yeah.
Yes.
This question might have been asked of you because I rudely did not turn my phone off before you started. I'm sorry for that.
It's okay.
Do we have a bigger list than, okay, you said Leah's looking for somebody, so do we have a bigger list of people that want to be part of the program than we have positions available?
Yes.
Yes.
And did you ask that question?
Yes.
And how much is that?
Three to four people that are unfilled currently. But we have not aggressively, and tell me correctly, we have not aggressively gone out to seek more seniors because we can't fill the slots of the people that have already volunteered.
But
We've
that
got
makes
too
no-
many bodies and not enough jobs.
I understand that, but you're saying that Leah needs somebody.
Yes,
How come
and
that's not filled?
she let me know I was out on maternity leave,
Okay,
so
that's what prompted it when I.
Oh, okay.
I talked to her-
I was listening with one, okay. So, okay.
I talked to her last Wednesday and told her that I would be starting to go through who I have and what her needs are and get her in touch with somebody.
Could you see what we could do to facilitate? I mean, I know you send stuff out to the
Department heads.
department heads, but something like the Board of Health, we have recycling.
Mm-hmm.
We pay somebody through the Board of Health a position on a Saturday. Could we offer,
So we did have
we
that.
offer more days for recycling and stuff like that, and be able to have a senior up there to monitor it,
Yep.
to have the fence open.
Yep.
I mean, anybody can recycle 7 days a week, but they have to carry it in.
Mhm.
But it's a lot easier because we want to make sure when it's monitored. Can we do?
Yeah, and I think definitely thinking outside of the box on some of the departments. I know that the water department had somebody painting hydrants at one point, but that's not an all-year thing, and it's not an every-year thing. But I think that that's a great idea. Gordon Follansby was doing the recycling on Saturday mornings through the senior tax work-off program. Unfortunately, when he passed, it went into a paid position. So, or it might have been that he was filling in.
But I understand.
so,
I just took that off. Okay.
um,
So we could all think out the box to
Yep.
try to be able to help our seniors a little bit more and to be able to help the town. So
Yep, definitely. And it could just be, like I said, a project that needs to be done, like the water department. And that filled up, I think it took the gentleman like 50 to 75 hours to complete that. So they don't have to fill the full hour, whatever hours they work. Obviously, if they work more than the allotted hours, then it's just a volunteer position.
like we had a project in the Selectmen's office that was with Mary's tutelage. It was very successful
Mhm.
for us. There's a beginning and end date to it.
Yeah.
It's done.
Well, we still need more help, right?
Yeah, but I mean, I think it's important. I think maybe people think it has to be a position. It can
No.
just be projects.
Yep.
They could do something for a month straight when they're home. Some people go to Florida. You know what I mean? So,
Yep.
Okay.
And it can
Maybe
certainly.
we can help thinking outside the box with you and try to get some other things with some department heads. When they have department head meetings, maybe we can bring this up. Kind of like a push rather than just sending out the email saying, "Oh no, we don't have anything now," and then we all forget about something.
Yeah.
Sometimes people think it's too much work to create a job, but once people get in there and they start helping them out, they see the benefits. Yeah.
Yep.
Do you mind if I ask?
Go ahead.
Just one question. Quickly.
Yeah.
On the seniors.
Yes.
I mean, we haven't talked about that. The senior center, obviously. How are we doing? It came up in the back of my head because we had Leanne in there about that big snowstorm.
Mhm.
How is it going with communication with the seniors? Is it going as well as we need it to be, or Can we help or anything like that?
I think we need more of an open communication. I think there's kind of a breakdown at times. I'm not always getting information in a timely manner as to what's happening. So if a senior is having problems driving or is calling frequently to different departments, I'm not learning about it so that I can't follow up with it. With the storm, again, I was out on maternity leave, so that was a little difficult. And I was following what was going on Facebook, but I didn't know what sections of towns didn't have power for 4 days. So therefore I couldn't have those that were covering me call up the seniors that we have a list for. Our list is certainly dwindling of those that want to be checked on in case of an emergency. But that's something that was previously happened. Previously during the ice storms that we've had, any long-term power outages, I have a card that I would go out with one of the officers and knock on their doors and make sure that they were okay, make sure that those that were on oxygen had a backup plan. And if they weren't home, we left a card that said, you know, we were here, you asked for us to check on you. That hasn't happened recently. I know that we haven't had a lot of storms, but I think that that's something that needs to get started again.
Okay. Now, I think we've had some seniors come in here and with some concerns, I think, into the Selectmen's office. So that's what you're looking for, because this made me think, because Mary actually kind of, you know, listened to them and understood their.
Are you saying recently when Teresa was out, or?
Yeah, but I think Mary kind of told Teresa about it. No, maybe I think you did. Oh, I was going to give you credit. I thought you did. Oh, but okay. So if somebody comes in maybe with some complaints, and maybe we see that there is a senior, maybe maybe make a little bit of a judgment. Say maybe we could maybe pass that information with these concerns that the senior has on to Teresa, so then she can look at it and see if there's a problem, or if they get pulled over, if they have an accident, maybe you need to be aware of it, or if they have. What about a medical call?
Those are all things that in the past I've been made aware of, because generally I can follow up and say, okay, do you need any additional services? Do you need Meals on Wheels? Do you just need somebody to check on you? You know, the ones out back I know about because I see when the ambulance or the cruiser comes in. And
people that living up there, not people that go to.
No, but yeah, I mean, it's helpful just so that I can do a follow-up with them. Board of Health has let me know in the past when she's had residents like frequently coming in asking the same questions over and over again. Jane's been great about saying, hey, do you know what the story is with this resident? Can you check on them? They might need a little extra help.
Why don't you send us an email with all those suggestions, and we'll see what we can do.
Okay.
Okay, thanks so much. I know it's inconvenient for you.
No worries.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a great night.
It served two purposes: to get you out and get it out too, maybe in the paper, that we get more people involved and stuff like that.
Yeah. Thank you. Have a great night.
You too.
Next item on the agenda is a presentation from the Pentucket on the school building project, status up to now.
Excellent. Good here. Okay.
So just a question before we start. So how is this working? The people on TV can see this?
Not right now. But Brad had given me a flash drive.
So if you're watching on TV, you can't see this?
No, it's never, no. Well, you can tell me, give me a way to be able to do it, because you can't, even if you zoom in. I mean, it's going to be zoomed in with this camera, and you could hardly. It's not very good. We're going to edit it down, and I have a flash drive.
I just asked because I watched the Groveland Selectmen meeting, and
They have
they
have a whole different situation. Well, did you watch it live, or did you watch it taped? Because when you watch this, other than tonight, it will have this whole presentation and the voice and correspondence.
Okay, good. Okay, just asking.
No.
Hi, Andy.
Hi. Thanks for having us here tonight. I'm Andy Murphy, Chairman of the Pentucket School Committee. I'm here with several of my colleagues. I got Brad Dorr here, who's one of the principals at Dorr and Whittier, our architects on the project. We've got Dr. Mulqueen and Jonathan Seymour back there. So we got all sorts of people who can answer any questions you might have. The main thing we want to accomplish is our first sort of foray into the community with information has been to update all of the boards of selectmen in the 3 district towns about the status of the project as it stands now. The thing I think to remember is we are still relatively early in the project, so there are all sorts of questions that still can't be answered. The most prominent of which that gets asked the most often is, how much will this cost? It's simply too early to answer that type of question.
Difficult question to answer if you don't have a school design.
That's exactly right. And I'll keep killing time while we're waiting for the projector to turn on.
Maybe the same presentation was.
Selectmen never asked too many questions, so I'll ask them. Find out.
I see a blue light. It's not.
Is it warming up?
All right.
I think if we went to the others, that one is the one that's putting light on there.
No,
Would it be
there's no light coming out of the bulb at all.
There it goes. We're getting there.
Can you switch it to the other one? Yeah, that one.
There.
No, they're both not good.
Okay, I think we're back in business.
And it is going live.
Okay, good.
So when we look, the first question obviously is, why the heck are we doing this? And the reason is that the high school is really old. The high school was built back in the Eisenhower administration. And actually the middle school is a little long in the tooth as well. It was built in 1967, which Brad reminded me was when the Beatles released Sgt. Pepper. We're celebrating 50 years of Sgt. Pepper and 50 years of the middle school as well. And we'll get into why it's important to think about the age of both those schools a little later on. But when you look at the high school, you know, there's the building that's old, and then perhaps even more importantly, the systems are really old. And we're talking about HVAC and plumbing and electrical systems that are really twice their expected life in terms of life expectancy. And what happens is they become, first of all, prone to breaking down because they're very old, and repairing them is very expensive because very often the parts for these old machines aren't available anymore, which means you either need to find them from some obscure parts dealer in some corner of the country, or you have to have them custom fabricated. And that becomes a very expensive way to keep the lights on and the heat going. As I think most people in this room know, we really have had a number of issues at the school in terms of incidents occurring where it disrupted the school and it cost us significant repair dollars. So we had a gas line leak that caused an evacuation, and as these dramatic pictures show, we had a water pipe burst that caused $300,000 worth of damage. And if you look at the picture on the left, that shows you the level of where the water was inside the school. So this is not Houston after the hurricane. This is right here in Pentucket. And on the right side, you see modular classrooms, which were destroyed and were a total loss. And then deep into the infrastructure, you have things like electrical lines, ducts, et cetera, which are corroding and corroding rather badly and can also lead to outages and disruptions at school. As you can see, we had a science hood that caused an evacuation in the electrical line, and a panel explosion that caused a significant electrical outage. So when we look at the high school, these are the infrastructure issues and the building issues that Dr. Mulqueen and his team are living with every day. It's really not an exaggeration to say everyone starts every day with their fingers crossed that something's not going to blow. Beyond the infrastructure, though, the school design was designed for a different era. And those of us of a certain age, I think, were educated in that era. And that was the era when you would go into a classroom, all the desks were neatly lined up. A teacher would lecture to you for an hour, and then you would get up and leave. This isn't necessarily how classes are run today. And I'll give you an example of my son who's in high school, his literature class. First of all, they're doing a project on Solzhenitsyn. So back in my day, the teacher would come in and say, okay, we're all going to read this book by Solzhenitsyn, and you'd all read it, and you'd probably do a book report, maybe you'd have a test, and that was it. But what they're doing is they're dividing the class up into teams, and they actually gave everyone the freedom to pick any international author they want. So his team picked Solzhenitsyn, and what they're going to do from there is not only read his book, but do all sorts of research around the cultural and political issues that were going on at the time, so they sort of understand the context under which the book was written. And then at the end of the line, what they do is they develop collaboratively a presentation and deliver it to the class. So when you look at the old way of learning, we would read a book and sort of regurgitate a book report and regurgitate on a test. What the kids are doing today is they're not only reading the book, but they're learning about all the context. So you look at the skills that they need to use. It's research, it's collaboration, it's public speaking and presentation skills. These are all skills that they're going to be using for the rest of their lives through college and in the workplace. Dare I say, they're good skills even for the Board of Selectmen here. So when we look at the school design, imagine having to break that class up on the left into groups of 5 and what you'd have to do with the desks. It's just not a flexible environment where you can break into groups and get together and collaborate like you have to today. And then when we look at some of the infrastructure and the technology in the rooms, I'll cite my son again. His physics classroom has 2 electrical outlets in it. You know, that's physics, where you tend to need things like laptops, and it's pretty heavy stuff. And when you look at how they're designed and built, and even how the furniture is, if you look on the left at the science lab, it's all sort of fixed furniture, counters, chairs. If you look on the right, which is a modern lab from a different school, everything's on wheels, so you can move things around readily. And again, this plays into the whole collaborative learning motif that we have today in schools. So this is another way how the current school just really isn't designed to map to today's educational requirements. So what have we done so far? That's a good question. It all started back in April 2015 when Dr. Mulqueen headed up the effort to submit our statement of interest to the Massachusetts School Building Authority. And that's where we make our case for why we think we need some state funding to try to build a new school. He did a really good job on it, and we were selected to enter what the MSBA calls its eligibility period. And that is a period of time where you're pretty much required to generate reams and reams of paperwork to give to the state so they understand everything about the school and what's going on. And again, Dr. Mulqueen and his team, they got that done, I think, 3 months ahead of the deadline. So we actually accelerated the project a little bit. And at that point, we were accepted into what's called the Feasibility Study. And Brad will talk in more depth about this, but that's where we are now. And in the Feasibility Study, you start putting together the groups and the professional assistants you will need for the project. So we created a building committee. We selected Vertex as our project manager. We have Dorr and Whittier as our architect. And as part of this also, we started engaging the community to get their input on what they want to see in a school. So this has included public hearings. More recently, we've had visioning sessions at the high school. There have been 2 of them so far. And these are multi-hour sessions where people can come and really learn a lot. They're really fascinating, actually. You can learn a lot about what's going on in modern education, what's happening at other schools where they have newer facilities. It's really interesting, and I'd encourage anyone watching this to go to the last one because it's a very interesting session. You can learn a lot. And the other thing that Dr. Mulqueen has done is he engaged this firm that's called Thought Exchange. And they have this sort of survey on steroids tool that lets you go out and get feedback from the community and let people easily identify what's most important to them in a school building project. We did one of those back in last spring. The next one actually just went out recently, and we're currently gathering the data from that. And it's a really good tool just to see what's important to people, and we got hundreds of people participating, so it's been a really good participation rate. And now we're going to turn this over to Brad because things get complicated and he's more intelligent than I am.
Well, I don't know about that, but
Speak right into that microphone.
thank you. So Andy's just told you a little bit about where we've been, and so what I'm going to try and do is explain a little bit about where we're going and some of the ground that we have to cover. And one of the things that I think it's important for everybody to understand is that there is a process here. There is a process. You do have a partner with the MSBA, who is the state funding agency in charge of school building projects throughout the Commonwealth. And as you can see, they actually, and this is pretty well documented and described on their website, they have a process that outlines the 8 various modules, okay, that are part of this process. And you can see where that green dotted line is, just to the right of Module 3, is about where we are today. So, as Andy said, we've just started working into the feasibility study phase. And when you look at a school building project, going through this process, we usually tell people it's about 6.5 to 7 years. And if you think that you started in 2015, we're talking about occupying the building somewhere in 2022, that seems to fit just about right to where the process is here at Pentucket. So as we said, we've entered the feasibility stage. We're going through that. The next stage will be schematic design. Feasibility really starts to understand, what's going on with the building. Schematic design is starting to look at, what a preferred option, what some of the options are, and we'll get into that a little bit more detail. Once you've identified that and put a cost number to that, and the state agrees with it, and that the towns agree with it, then you would enter a project funding agreement with the state.
Can I ask a question on the
Yeah.
schematic design? So that defines which option that you want to go forward with.
That's correct.
And does that, I would think it cannot really associate a exact cost until you actually do the design, or can it?
It can. It can for purposes of how the towns are going to look at it, because ultimately the price, okay, or the cost of the building is set at schematic design. So while you may not have actually designed it entirely, you've done enough design and you've put in the appropriate level of contingencies, and there's enough information there for 2 estimators to go and look at and reconcile. And ultimately, at the end of schematic design, that's when you're going to, go and have an agreement with the MSB as to what the total cost of the project is.
Makes sense.
Okay. Then in Module 6, you would actually get into more detailed design. That's completed, and then we would bring on this project, we're actually going to go and utilize a CM at risk delivery method. Recently, the building committee approved moving forward with that delivery method, which we think is a positive thing. And then happy days somewhere out in the 21-22 time frame. If the glass half full right now, you would be able to actually go ahead and occupy the building. One of the really important aspects of this project and all school building projects is to make sure that everybody is well informed about what the process is and what's going on. We fully believe, and I think that the building committee also believes, that the process needs to be transparent. We've started that process with, as Andy said, going through some of these educational visioning sessions through the thought exchange program to really start to suss out from the community what's important. So we're talking to the community at large. We're also talking to educators. We're talking to parents. As people know, there's a couple of different grade configurations that are being analyzed here. One is just a high school. One is also the potential of a middle high school project. So all of those, ideas, concerns are all being reviewed. So it's a very open format. We want to continue that moving forward, with some public information sessions so that everybody has an opportunity to understand what's going on with the project, because it's going to be it's going to be the largest investment with these 3 communities, at least probably in our lifetime. So it's important that everybody really understands what's going on, what the basis for the costs are, what the educational benefits of the project are, and all those types of things. And then ultimately, as shown on the last green there, where it says town funding votes, we would expect to have all of that information completed through the feasibility and schematic design phase, I've had, our submission to the MSBA. Depending on the time of it, we would expect to have a MSBA Board of Approval Director, a Board of Directors approval in hand, and then with that, we would go out to the 3 towns.
A question.
Yeah.
So right before the town funding votes, theoretically, in the fall of 2018, so you've got public presentations and it says preferred option. So what's the decision-making process in that whole thing? Is the who's putting the biggest thumb on the scale, you might say? Is MSBA does MSBA say, I really think this district needs 712, or what's the decision-making process that right before the town funding votes?
Can I get to that in just 2 slides?
Sure.
Okay. So the first step there, kind of in getting the word out, if you will, is the educational visioning. We've had 2 of those sessions thus far. We do a lot of this, and it's really to go and have that exchange with the community, with educators, with parents, to go and get everybody informed as to what's going on, what the process is, what the new opportunities are in education today. But it's also really important for us as the designer to understand where everybody's coming from, right? What's important at Pentucket, and what is important from a parental perspective in terms of, particularly when you're starting talking about things like grade configuration. So we do have one more, which is on December 13th. We would encourage everybody to come. It's a very interactive process, and I think thus far, we've had pretty good participation. We'd always like to get more. And again, this is an opportunity for people to be informed, but it's also an opportunity for people to get excited about what the potential is here. And when people, start to understand what's going on, they'll talk to their neighbors, and the more information that's out there, the higher likelihood of success we have for the project. So now kind of getting to some of the questions that you've had, with the feasibility study and the process here, we've had a team of architects and engineers go through both buildings to understand what the conditions of those buildings are. Again, this is part of the MSBA process. It's been fully documented, so we'll have an opportunity not only for the MSBA to understand what the potential solutions might be, but as well as for people to, who aren't as familiar with those buildings to go, and if they so choose, be able to read that, understand what the conditions are. We're working with our educational planners to define, and the district to understand, what is the educational space needs and the requirements, which is understanding what are all the different types of spaces, how large are those spaces, and how would they all be connected. In terms of, what's, to use the thumb analogy there, nobody's really putting a thumb on anything here, because part of the MSBA process is to explore all potential options. And the way they define that is to, and here, since we have both a middle high school as well as a high school, we have 2 sets. But we're gonna have what they call a do nothing or code upgrade option, which is just to bring the building into compliance. And what would that mean? What would the cost of that mean? We'd have 2 options for that, for high school only, and again, for a middle high school. And you understand that that doesn't take into account any of the educational aspects of the project. It's just strictly, what does it take to make the building inspector and the fire department and the police department happy? Then the next thing that we would look at is we'd look at renovation and potential renovation addition options, depending upon, what the condition of the building is. So there may be some areas of the building where, it might be suitable to go and renovate. There might be other areas of the building which might not be suitable. As we know, when you saw that flood, there are some problems structurally there with the high school building. So we're going to look at that and understand, is there a potential for a renovation or a reno add? And then there'll be 2 options for that as well. Similarly, we'll look at all new construction options. So we'll have the full universe, if you will, of potential options and building solutions based on the conditions of the building, site constraints, as well as the educational requirements that have been worked through with the district, with the educators, and have come out of the the thought exchange and the visioning sessions.
And if I could just interrupt for a second, I think it is important for people at home to understand that there's a cost to doing nothing. And as Brad just described, bringing these buildings up to code, as you can imagine, they're built out of cinder blocks and cement, and having to go in and bring all the systems up to code is a fairly extensive project just in itself. So I think the way to frame this and for people to think about it is really more, what's the cost-benefit equation here? What's the cost of a code upgrade? What's the benefit? Well, people can weigh that out in their own minds. But it's important to understand that there really isn't a do nothing, spend nothing option. There's going to be a cost to something.
And actually, just to elaborate on that a little bit further, there's also within the building code, there are what we call code triggers, which require, if you meet 30% for accessibility, for example, 30% of the assessed value of the building, the entire building needs to be brought up to come into compliance for accessibility. So you have to look at that. There's also another structural trigger. And so all of these things would have to be taken into consideration. So sometimes people think there's a, kind of a lightweight Band-Aid solution to being able to go and fix these things, but pretty quickly you get into it and you find that it really, even if you're just doing a code upgrade, it becomes a very holistic intervention that we have to look at. So then with that, and going through the feasibility stage, what we end up doing is we take many of the options that we've developed, we'll have 6 at least here, okay, and then we're going to refine those down to the few in schematic design. At this, when we have 6 options, we'll be doing comparative cost analysis so that we can understand, does a new construction option make sense as compared to a renovation, and we'll understand what the comparative costs are for those. And then once we go and make a decision based on what the educational objectives are, what's come out of these initial options that have been developed, we'll get to a point where we'll refine it, down to a preferred option. We'll be submitting that to the state. And then if the state comes back and is in agreement with us, we would proceed forward into the schematic design phase to go and develop that further in order to get this more refined cost estimate so that we can take that and use that as the basis for the project funding agreement, for the project to go and move forward.
What's the timing of that?
So right now we're talking about getting to start schematic design, I believe, sometime in late March, mid to late March. Mm-hmm. And then we would be completing schematic design, I think, late fall, well, I think we'd have a board vote for schematic design. I believe it's October 31st that we would actually have that board of approval from the state in hand, and we'll go through that timeline here in just a second.
Okay.
Again, as I was just saying, we take the many options, refine those to the one. We'll be looking at the buildings, we'll be looking at sites, we'll be looking at exterior fields, utilities. Our firm will be providing, we have an independent cost estimator that will be providing an estimate. We also will have an estimate from the construction manager, and then we'll be taking those 2 cost estimates, reconciling those as part of the submission back to the MSBA. Again, October 31st, we hope to have an approval from the state, and then ultimately right after that, we'll know what the individual cost is for the various towns. So it's an important point to understand that right now, we have approximately 52% of the project is eligible for reimbursement from the state. And what that means is it's 52% of eligible costs. So that's an important thing to remember, because it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get 52% back. There are kind of subcategories and caps within that 52% that ultimately serve to reduce that 50% to something lower than that. But we won't know that until it gets in. So once we've got the MSBA board approval and we've agreed to what the cost is at schematic design, we'll also know what their share is going to be. And then what the balance of that is will be the 3 towns. And then, between the powers that be, you guys will define, what the, and with the district, what the split is between the 3 towns.
just what, in say 10 projects that you might have dealt with, what are the not accessories, but things that the state is not eligible at, and on a not the greatest school ever, but not, well, just on an average one, what percent are things that are not covered? Any ideas?
It varies town to town, and it's based also on the demographic of what your starting point is. It depends a lot about what your site is, but I'll give you a couple for examples. There are certain specific exclusions. For example, the state does not reimburse field houses. The state does not reimburse artificial turf fields. They do reimburse, fields, and they do reimburse gymnasiums, and there's different ways of how you approach that. But those are specific exclusions. And then they have space requirements for various different types of spaces that you have to fall within that particular bandwidth. There are also things, for example, where they have a construction cost cap, which is below market rates. So right now, the MSBA construction cost limit is $326 per square foot, I believe.
Okay.
Okay, and public construction in Massachusetts is, more like 450 to 500, somewhere in that range. And, there's documented stuff that's actually out there on the MSBA website, but it just hasn't got there. So, there's some of those things which are just, not completely matching up. And those are some of the, those subcaps, if you will, that we'll encounter, and every community encounters them. And, that's part of this, this process, that once the MSBA board is approved, okay, we're moving forward with your project, then we're going to take that 52%, and then we're going to go and find out, how does that relate to eligible versus ineligible costs.
Have you ever, but I guess my question is, have you ever seen a school that ended up being 10% state reimbursement and 90% school reimbursement, and that they just didn't like a lot of things?
No.
No. Okay.
No, if I had to guess here, I'd end up where, somewhere probably in the mid 40s, probably somewhere in that range, just based on similar projects, similar demographics.
Okay.
Okay, somewhere in that range.
So you're saying MSBA board vote on October 31st and costs finalized in early November, a little less than ideal with most of or probably all three towns typically have a special town meeting the third week of October so that they can set their tax rate for that fiscal year. And then if a town would require an override, that would be a vote at the polls, which would be the first week of November. So how's that going to work?
Well, the only thing I can say is based on the timeline, the MSBA board dates don't change. So, that's about, given the work that has to be accomplished and their dates that are already set, that's about as early as we were able to comfortably, get it out to be a point. Whether or not towns are able to fit it into their fall town meeting schedule, or...
Well, I don't think any of the three, based on that, I don't think any of the
could
three
be.
towns.
Yeah.
Because we have to set our taxes. There's no option.
And it may be, that it has to be a special. It may be that it has to get pushed back further. The one thing I can say is, time is always money here, particularly when you're talking about a large, number in terms of escalation, because escalation is factored in. We'll have a sense of what that is even before, because there's a 6-week advance requirement to be able to get the cost into MSBA. We just will not have a final determination, okay, based on, kind of what the eligible
and
versus
even if we
ineligible.
know the number 6 weeks ahead, we really can't vote until we have the actual approved number.
That's right.
Okay. I'm sure the other.
I mean, it's all gonna work. I mean, if you have to work under their guidelines, so if that's the only thing that's kind of puts a monkey wrench into it, which really isn't a monkey wrench, we just have to.
Well, we have to have all three towns. They're going to have 2 town meetings and 2 vote at the polls.
Yeah, but I think the project's worth it.
No, not that it's not, but
I understand,
it's just, it's a few weeks apart.
I understand.
So this is again just kind of looking at the same timeline that we just discussed, giving you a breakdown between the feasibility and schematic design, which is under MSBA parlance is phase 1, taking us through November, and then this is phase 2, assuming a positive MSBA board vote and a positive votes from the town. So all 3 towns' votes will be required. And that's where we are. So we're happy to answer any questions. There was a lot of information that was there, most of it process driven, but we want to continue, kind of this dialogue with the towns. We plan to do it again in the future. We'll probably have public meetings, but we'll rotate them around between the various towns.
Thank you. I mean, to me, the need is very evident, and you've done a very good job illustrating that point. I think the challenge now is obvious to convince all 3 towns to vote to increase their taxes. Have you gotten any feedback along the way on this?
Well, my feedback has all been pretty positive. I think there's a genuine recognition out there.
Good.
That the buildings are old, and it's not just people out there saying we want the shiny new penny.
Yep. Well, because it's one thing, I think you're going to get. I'm all in for the project myself, but I think just from a general standpoint, you're going to get good feedback that the buildings are old and they need something. They need to be replaced. Now you're going to ask the same person, okay, raise my taxes 8 or 10%, and you might get a different answer. I don't know.
So
that's what I was asking.
You remember, because we went through the Page School together when we did that, right? And I was on a kind of a different side of the table on that one, where I was on the building committee. Right. And I really do think that the key component here, and what our collective job is, not just the design team, not just the school committee, not just district administration, right? I think it's all 3 towns. I think it's the Board of Selectmen, right? I think it's the district. I think it's the design team. For all of us, to be able to get that word out there and to make the case for why we're asking the taxpayers, okay, to make this investment, because that's really what it is.
Right.
It's not just an investment in building and infrastructure, which is clearly required, but it's an investment in education and the kids that are coming up through the ranks. My kids, unfortunately, won't get any of those benefits. But I think there are a number of benefits for those kids, as well as community members that just are looking at increase in real estate value.
Right. I mean, I don't want to speak for the whole town, certainly, but I mean, we established a school stabilization fund years ago, and at this point, based on the money that we have into it, I mean, we could support a new high school without an override. High school, middle school, probably not. That we would need an override, but it certainly would not be anywhere near the 8 to 10% range. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I would hope that our town would be extremely supportive.
We hope so too.
I just have I'm sorry, Andy.
Oh, no, I just want to say that, you're our 3rd Board of Selectmen meeting, and I think all 3 boards have been very supportive of the project, but all 3 of them said exactly the same thing, which is the challenge is getting people to understand that, even if you have no kids in this system, which actually I won't have any kids in the system either by the time it's built, there are just benefits to the community, and there are really hard benefits to real estate values, and people need to understand that there's something in this for everyone.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what the design's going to be, so I don't know what the cost. So, I mean, I don't know any numbers, but I mean, our override rate is going to be fairly minimal. So I would think based on that, you'll get a lot more yes votes in this tier.
In the process, so you get to the point where you had 6 scenarios, and then who is making the ultimate preferred option, the preferred choice? Is it the building committee or the MSBA, or from that, how does that 6 get to 1? I guess that's the question.
So yeah, it really does come back to the building committee, right, and the school committee, and you know, there's ongoing meetings with both, but ultimately, and we also have an ongoing working group where we're really, you know, grinding through the nuts and bolts of that, in which we go and report back to the building committee. And then it's really the building committee that's going to go and analyze all of that data and take that, and then ultimately that will be submitted to the MSBA. The MSBA in turn will review that, and most of the time, you know, they have some comments, but you know, most of the time they really do try and work with the towns to make sure that, you know, they're getting what they are looking for, because each town is a little different. So it's the building committee that ultimately, you know, goes through the MSBA process as well to make sure that it's consistent with what their requirements are. And we're working, you know, with that knowledge in mind, you know, before we make those submissions.
And having the 6 is the MSBA, it's their guidelines. You have to submit that to them. We have to have a good understanding and analyze and have those 6 things before, and then we present it to them for their approval. But I think what Brad's saying is they'll hopefully go the way that we want to do it.
Okay, so it's unusual, it would be unusual or unheard of for them to say no. That's what I was asking about, the thumb. We don't like your idea at all. We think you should do this.
It is. I don't think I've ever seen it happen. It usually does not get by MSBA staff to go to board approval unless it passes muster. So we wouldn't get to the board approval, okay, unless it passes muster with MSBA staff. And there are a number of check-ins along the way to make sure. So the process is extremely well defined. It's been very successful in terms of actually going and kicking out, you know, successful school buildings, and you know, we're following it, and you know, at the same time, you know, there's a uniqueness that goes along with every school district to make sure that, you know, we're educating kids the way that this district wants to educate kids. And, you know, those two things, you know, get worked out and balanced out. And, you know, there's a little compromise coming from both sides. But ultimately, it works.
Not necessarily with this project, but with other projects, how is the new project to not be detrimental to the existing students? In other words, okay, well, we need to do this, and these people are going to have to suffer a while just because we have to get to the final outcome. What can be done to eliminate problems for people that, like you say, may not get any benefit out of it, but there's going to be some hassle because of any construction or disruption of athletic fields or disruption of all sorts of things.
So you're saying hypothetically that my child in the school now, hypothetically, was going to start being built tomorrow on that site. My son's or daughter's education might be hindered because of that construction, but by the time it's built, they've already graduated.
Right.
So
what's in place to?
There are some checks and balances, and Brad can talk to that better than I, about that's part of the process if they're going to be building on site, to make sure that the educational integrity is still intact within the buildings while the construction is going on.
So eliminate's probably too strong a word. There's going to be some disruptions. You know, the project, you know, we don't know exactly what it is yet, so we don't know the level of phasing that will be required. We don't anticipate, you know, having to have in-depth phasing unless it goes into a renovation type project. But, you know, it's a construction project. And so, you know, even when we were doing things at Page, you know, we had disruptions there. But we worked through it. And one of the things that we did, okay, here was just recently is, you know, bringing on a construction manager early in the process so that we can understand not how do we eliminate all of these things, but how do we mitigate potential disruptions so that we can work with the school district, because we understand, right, it's still delivering education while we may be building or renovating a school. And so we'll work to go and mitigate those and minimize those. One thing that we won't be compromising on, though, is safety during the job. So, we will be having a safe environment for students to go to school every day, students and staff. So, and that means sometimes we may have temporary facilities that have to be put in place, temporary parking lots, and all of that, those types of things get factored into. If we have to build, it's no surprise, people have been talking about this. Would you build it in behind the school? Maybe we would. If we did, obviously we'd be down a field. So, how do we deal with that? Well, we'd have to go and look, just if you think about what, Triton had to do when they were building their field. You might have to rotate it around, until that happens. So those are all the types of circumstances that we would go and work with once we understand what that preferred solution is. And as part of that preferred solution, we would figure out what phasing requirements are going to need to be put in place to make sure that, we do ensure a safe environment for everybody during the construction.
And we're not trying to reinvent the wheel when that happens. We're just going to try to design it specifically to our needs.
Well,
Because
I understand.
There's a few things that we went to, one down in Situate, that was one of the questions, because they had built a middle school right next to a high school and then renovated their auditorium at the same time. That was, I think, one of the questions that came up to the principal there. And, nobody's going to lie to you. You have to work at it, but it's very workable. And the kids' education did not suffer because of the project.
Most of the time, there's some sort of phasing that takes place, because most of the time you're working on an existing site. We are going to look at potential alternatives here, but there's a lot of things that make sense about the existing site. One of the things that makes sense about the existing site is it's already owned, so you don't have to go and pay for a new parcel of land. That is also one of the things that's not reimbursed by the state. So if you found a parcel X right across the street that was $2 or $3 million, you could go and build it there, but they wouldn't reimburse you for that $2 or $3 million that you would have to pay.
And the MSBA, they ask you part of this process to look at some alternative sites to see if they would work, part of the process.
Joe, any other questions?
Nope, I'm good. We've kind of asked along the way.
Yeah, the only thing I would say is thank you. I would encourage to come to any of these, the last visioning session and any public forum that we're all going to have on this, because I think it's important now for the community to get out there and see the dedication that the school committee, the superintendent, the principal, and everybody that's involved in this, in the three towns, to get involved now, because it's crucial. Because one thing, and there are the opportunities for everybody to get involved now. Those visioning sessions where I think you got more the second time, because the word got out that, it was, you guys were listening, that the community is going to be a big part of the final product that's going to be down there to educate our kids. So I think it's important, because I do hate to hear when we're voting on things, why wasn't I informed on this? And there was 17 public meetings, and there was stuff like that. So I can't encourage enough for people to get involved. It's a worthwhile project, and your voice will be heard at this point of the project. It's really important. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everybody.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
Joe, did you want that? You can't email that because it's so large.
What's that?
That I have a flash.
I don't want it.
Did you want it? I saw you taking notes. Did you want it
I
downloaded?
do not want it. I'm good. I've seen that before.
Obviously, you've been peeking into the. What, you running for Selectmen of Groveland and watching the meeting?
No, I would not. I wouldn't leave the Grove. No offense.
Their meetings are more entertaining than ours.
I can make them more entertaining. You guys keep on telling me to be quiet. You want to go home early.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nice job, Brad.
No, but I like that. They're this is scary. Annual report.
Yeah, it's here, but I just get it. Okay. Is that next? Okay. Our next item is our,
Is Liz.
Liz.
Energy Advisory.
Energy Advisory Committee.
Can you turn that around and just make sure you speak right into the mic, please?
Yeah, it's for,
It's for the recording and the
Yep.
broadcast.
So, I know you had an email, I think, maybe Mary forwarded from Rick, and
we've got it.
diverged a little bit from that, but there were three things. One is that the Green Communities annual report is due December 11th.
Mm-hmm.
We need to submit that report every year in order to remain eligible for grant money. And, it needs to be signed by the chief municipal officer or the board of selectmen.
So you've done it? You've done the report?
We're working on it.
Okay.
Yeah. So, we do plan on having it ready for that deadline. But, what we'd like to suggest is that, if you don't designate one person to sign it, it ends up having to get three signatures from the board of selectmen, from all three of you, and I don't know if you want to do that, but
So can we-
to have a vote that it.
We can designate somebody?
Can we designate somebody other than us? So could we designate the chairperson of the Energy Advisory Committee to sign on behalf?
He's not the chief executive.
The chairperson?
As long as that's okay, I'm okay.
Okay. Make that.
So I move to authorize the,
Yeah, why don't we do that? Chief Procurement Officer.
Put him on the hook.
he got fired.
Well, that might sound better then, because they asked for the executive.
Executive administrator.
I really don't. I don't
They
care.
ask for the executive or if they're designated, but I think if you need documentation that it's been designated.
Or we could just have the chairperson of the board of selectmen sign it. That's probably the most appropriate thing.
When are you going to have this done?
He's here every day almost.
I can get
I move to
here
authorize the
to sign something.
chairperson of the board of selectmen to sign the Green Committee annual report.
Second.
All in favor?
All in
Aye.
favor?
Aye.
Aye.
You okay with that?
Yeah. it's
Anything
okay.
else?
Two more things. So the second thing is that, the grant proposals for next round of grants are due in March. And we'd like to do, what we did last year, which is to invite, committee and department chairs to a meeting, to talk about, proposal suggestions, and, aim to schedule that for some time in mid-January. Want to see if you were okay with our trying to pull that together.
Sure.
It's fine, yeah.
I don't see why not.
I don't know if you can come to they generally periodically have department head meetings, if you're available.
They're during the day, though.
If you're available, you might get more people that way.
Yeah, we're trying to hold it sometime during the day. So there is
So-
such a thing as a department head meeting.
Yep.
Yes.
You can
Monthly or
organize
bi-monthly?
that. You can organize that with
As needed.
You could organize that with Mary, and you could go to the first one, and you can organize that and have one in January.
Okay, so I'll follow. Is there such a thing as a town email list or listserv that residents sign on to?
Through our website, there's about 800 people that are signed up for it, yes.
Oh, okay.
For notices?
Well, the town of Newburyport, has the Solarize Plus program, and we are officially, the town of West Newbury is officially invited to participate in that program.
So you want to let residents know?
Yes.
Right there is the news and announcement lady. So you just tell her whatever you need, and it'll go out to 800 people like that.
All right, so you don't need official approval to use that list. Okay.
Well, you have to give it to her, and
Yeah.
she'll handle it.
She's the gatekeeper.
She's meant to talk to you now.
Now, that was two.
I think that's all I have.
What about the streetlights?
Well, the streetlights, both the streetlights and,
Well, you just have it on here, that's why I didn't know if you
Yes.
forgot.
Rick has that, in control. He's had, I think, is it Lori?
We don't need to know, I just didn't know if,
Working with the town accountant's office to get the information needed on that.
okay,
So I think we're all set, that's underway.
thank you.
Chief, you're up.
Whatever you want.
Doesn't matter. Talk about the school resource.
Yes.
Welcome.
Hi. How's it been so far?
Very good so far. Been about 3 months now. Got a lot of positive feedback from the community, teachers, students, parents. They've really been thriving down there. We're right happy up there. My primary goals and what I've been doing is just making long-term relationships with staff and students, working on school safety, and just acting as a resource for school and administration for both disciplinary measures, educational measures, just an asset as bringing community resources that we use. So some highlights so far. I've done a Halloween safety program at the Cage School. Next week I'm starting a drug and alcohol prevention program at the middle school with a health teacher with 7th graders. I have done a job shadow with one of the seniors, public safety class, another one coming up as well. Did a interview with high school newspaper online. I did a safety in the community presentation for the special ed students in high school. So a lot of those things, teachers are constantly coming up to me and asking me, hey, can you get involved in my history class, talk about X, Y, and Z, science class, forensics class, and a lot of different things kind of on the docket. So when there aren't things really going on in school, I'm working on things with guidance and the principals, preparing for upcoming events and presentations that I'm looking at educational mostly events. So going very well so far.
I received a lot of feedback. I will say people that talk to class and impact when I'm stopping at the schools, I'm getting the same positive
Good.
feedback from administrators.
So it's working as you have had envisioned a year ago?
I'm very pleased with it. I mean, I expected, I don't want to say negativity, but
Bumps.
concern.
Yeah.
But I haven't gotten any.
I've-
Every time I go in there, not really to check on it, but just to kind of stop in and do the things that I have to do.
I've heard Dr. Mulqueen mention on more than one occasion that Justin's been I don't know how he phrased it, but a great resource to him, or assistance or help, or whatever, however he phrased. I don't know what he was speaking about specifically, but
Yeah, a lot of various things. I mean,
probably ad hoc stuff.
yeah, a number of things come up at each of the schools. But yeah, I'm there whenever they need me. So
Has there been any, I don't know what the word would be, just
Law enforcement.
territorial issues. In other words, like people from Merrimack saying, "I want you dealing with West Newbury officer or anything like that." I don't know. Just asking. Yeah.
no, none at all. Obviously, we have the issue with Roland is kind of that's happening in middle school by boundaries. We just worked out an MOU regarding that, saying when I'm there during the day, I just kind of cover everything. After hours, it's a little different, but there's been a couple of occasions where I've gone to houses in Merrimack, gone to houses in Groveland. I've used their SROs as liaisons. Say, hey, this is what I'm going to do. Can you assist or have someone assist? Kind of have to go with another town. There's been no issues. They've been more than happy to help. And they've also called on me to assist with, hey, is so and so in school today, or kid doing? What's his status type thing? So it kind of goes back and forth both ways. We help each other.
Groveland and Merrimack have school resource officers?
It's a different role.
Or they're quasi-designated?
Yeah, it's a collateral duty type thing.
Yeah.
They're both just day shift officers. Essentially, they're working in elementary schools.
Right.
They're not stationed in the schools.
I understand.
As I am. So it's a little different,
Yep,
but
got it.
That's what they're labeled as.
What's your like normal day?
So I'll start the day usually at the high school. Check in with the principals and the vice principal. What we'll do at one of the side entrances, we'll greet all the staff and students just as they come in to say, hi, good morning, how you doing? Once we get going, I'll check in emails, what's going on. I'll check in with guidance and the office. Those are my primary resources because they really have the heart of what's going on in schools. And if there's, like I said, if there's nothing that they need me to address or they want me to be in the loop, I'll be working on, like this week I've been working on the drug and alcohol safety presentation for next week. I also have Alice active shooter training drills next week as well for the staff. So, throughout the day, I mean, I get pulled different ways all day long. We'll do radio, phone, so each day is different. But yeah, just go through the day, pop into each school if I can, and
When you say pop into each school, what does that mean?
so I try to make sure I basically appear at each school. So I start the day at high school. I'll go to the middle school, go to the day school. I don't get to every school every day. Depends on what's going on at each school, what my schedule's like. But I try to be visible at all three as much as I can.
Is there any other resources that we can help out, or how you, anything that?
No, I think everything's going well so far. I'm getting all the support I need all the support I need from the town and school. So right now, no issues.
It's actually been, I've been very, very pleased with where it's come to in a really short period of time. It's only, was it August 5th?
Yeah.
So it's only August 5th that this side has really taken off a lot better than I envisioned. Kind of added to my thoughts. The superintendent's thought he was the right person for the job, and I guess we've given him a long leash, and he's made very well use of that, put that through school. So I'm very pleased what he's been doing and where he's planning on going. So he's truly driving the bus to make it better than it could, even what I couldn't do. So I'm very happy with it. And Sergeant Duran checks in with him every single day. We go out, Sergeant Duran saw it there, and I even get to know him, check in with him, see if there's anything that needs to be addressed or something like that.
Great.
He pretty much handles everything that he needs to handle, and he calls us when he needs some additional resources.
Great, thank you.
Any more questions, Glenn?
No,
Okay,
Nope, seems like it's going fantastic.
thank you.
Thanks for coming in tonight.
I think next that Joe had was obviously Sergeant Tina and I, it's regards to the proposed sign. I believe board members saw a copy of it.
Just, Art or Dan, just so that we know, but for people listening in, give us a couple sentences, so what's going on?
Okay, this is kind of, I'll give a short dog and pony. This is, I guess, a recap, a little bit more information from probably about a month ago, when Sergeant Cena and I came in, proposed an electronic sign out in front of the safety complex. The sign is 100% being donated financially to the Kenny Powell Foundation. So all the other behind the scenes stuff, other than Sergeant Cena, he's been doing all, I guess, the heavy lifting.
Okay.
So tonight we're here, what Sergeant Cena's come up with, when, I guess, we anticipate, we hope, we thought we would have it in by now, but Plan A didn't quite work, so we're at the Plan B, which is great.
So location-wise, it's going to go where the current one is. It'll replace that.
Yeah.
Okay. And what is the timing approximately?
What?
Uh-huh.
Contrary to what you guys have. A little different layout. I think you're going to remove the committee obviously can decide which one we think is best to go with. After that, I'll just have to talk to zoning, what oversees the position of the sign, electrical inspector, the zoning board to do the electrical work.
Oh, the building inspector, okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
Start to finish, the company that was selected, they do everything from granite posts, right, cross blacks, start to finish. So then they don't use any landscape and electrical, like hardwiring, until we got my licensed electrician, obviously. But that we want to use the landscape, around the sign.
So,
But
I'm sorry.
the timing though, approximately?
Well, once we agree upon it, you said fabrication should be ready by the springtime, but installation depending on weather conditions.
So you're looking March, April, maybe?
Yeah, I would lean more towards
April, May, okay.
The lighted, the changeable lighted portion of the sign. So is that going to be fixed or moving?
It's electronic.
Right, but is this going to, like if you had 7 messages or 2 messages, are these going to rotate, or is this one fixed message?
No, it will update how quickly we want it to. It won't scroll. I got a lot of negative feedback about scrolling signs for distraction purposes. You know, like if you watch news, news channel about school closings, you forget where you left off next time the show comes back.
Does it change messages though? Like if you have 2 messages that one.
Could that be up there for 5 minutes and then another whole new message about Mill Pond, Winter Carnival come up, and that will stay for 5 minutes?
Or what
And then
is the time, or
whatever,
anything you
probably
want?
can-
It's all up to us. It's up to when we get a program as to how we want to do it, the font size, as to how we want to, how big the letters should be.
What color will the letters be?
Is it saying in front of you? I want those maybe 8-inch letters, 8 or 10-inch letters.
Color.
Oh, the color is exactly right. Black back.
White?
Other complaints we saw was red lettering doesn't work well, and then if you add red lettering with snow or rain, it distracts it from the drawing. So white seems to be the best with black.
It's a big sign.
It's a very big sign, yes.
No.
I
think
had,
that's the only,
I had some, I had it,
What made it 10 feet?
I think what's getting us is the design they put up top. The inside is more than 1 year.
How,
More display, more letters and more lines.
Glenn, did you mean total size or just the size of?
no, the total size.
the
of it.
total is
Driven by the-
10 feet 8 inches.
And it's driven by the top section.
Yeah. The top section, I just wonder why the word complex is the biggest word in all caps, and public safety is in the same font, but caps and lowercase, and then West Newbury is smaller than either of those 2 words. It seems
Weird end.
it's all, just the fonts seem odd. Why the word complex is the biggest word on the whole sign. Just something to think. It's all. If you look, complex is all caps.
It's a good
But
point.
public safety is the same font, but smaller, but mixed. And West Newbury is kind of an afterthought. It seems
Did
like
the committee decide this? Or
That was a preliminary from the company. I gave a basic idea what I was looking for.
Mhm.
Schematics, you went one with that, you go with another one. Like I said, a little bit more detailed on the upper portion, but.
The one that's out there now, Dan, is, do you know how wide that is? Is that 6, because this is 6 feet, it's not.
You talking about just the granite slab?
Yeah, the one, yeah. 4 or 5.
this isn't 6 feet.
Because that says.
The inside diameter is 6 feet.
this is
that
probably
says public-
6,
what's that
7,
say?
6,
Public
7. Yeah.
safety, the one now?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I think the whole purpose of it is this, really, the black.
Right.
So, I mean, this thing, I mean, I don't know. I downsized the whole thing and just like public safety complex on one line. It's the same same as what we got now. I mean, that'd even be bigger probably, because this says it's 6 feet wide. I don't think the one out there is 6 feet. So
Well, I think what's
tho-
driving the wideness is
those must be
the
huge
bottom.
letters.
Is the bottom is driving the wideness.
But that's okay. That's okay. It's the top thing that's, yeah, it could be at least a third less or more.
See,
Yeah,
it seems
I
the
think that's the only
top,
negative
the
you're gonna
top
get
is
is-
busy. We've got the town seal, couple of flags, and West Newbury and Public Safety Complex. There's a lot of stuff there. It's different fonts, and I think maybe it could be simplified.
Yeah, the logo could go smaller, and then
I could do without a
or
logo.
we could do without
yeah.
it, and it could say Public Safety Complex just straight up. I mean, that has to be huge letters. If it's 6 feet wide and 2 words.
Well, you have your scale there. It's scale is 1.25 inches equals a foot.
So public has to be like 2.5 feet wide.
Well, I think this needs to be a public and private partnership. You know what I mean? As in the sense that the foundation's paying for it, and
Right.
we might
Well, we're
want to
just
give.
giving feedback.
We want to give a little feedback. The only feedback I would give would be that it might need to be a little bit smaller for people not to to be up in arms. That's 10. Well, if this is really the
When you
scale,
say smaller, do you mean height-wise?
height. I don't mind the wideness of it.
I don't either. 'Cause
I don't
that's-
mind the
'cause
width,
That's the
no.
sign. That's.
Well,
Yeah.
And you
that's
want
good.
you
want
want
that.
it
That's the reason why
if
you're
it's
doing
not
it.
if it's not visible, it's
You
no
don't want to
good. Yeah.
compromise on the board. I don't think.
Yeah, board's great.
The width, it's maybe the height. Yeah.
Yeah, it looked big.
And it's driven by the sign. Yeah.
Well, that would be only if you could
I'm
spruce
always
that down a little bit.
a less is more. Like West Newbury Public Safety. I don't know if we need a seal. We have seals lots of places.
Do we
Just-
need a seal? Do we even need the word complex? You make a good point. It's public safety.
We're adding complexity.
Was this seal something that the committee came up with?
No, the gentleman that designed it, saw it on the town's homepage.
Mhm.
We
Yeah.
try to keep it as I know simplistic enough the word is the way that the upper sign is configured, but I kind of wanted to keep the hair. I just didn't want to drop an LED sign in the middle of no man's land and have it be
No,
residential houses, boom, LED sign.
Well, I would think it'd be important to the LED sign and keep the top as conservative. Get rid of the seal, get rid of the American stuff, and just keep it as conservative as possible. And that would
Lower the height.
And that would lower the height, and that would make the lower the height, but don't take the height off the bottom either. You know, keep the LED sign where it is, but take a little bit off of here, and not make it so complex like what Archie said. Maybe just make it very simplistic as West Newbury Public Safety. You could even put complex. I don't know what's on that other one. I go by it. I go by that sign every day, and I can't remember what it says.
What's
on it.
Dan? What's the top part made out of? Is that wood, painted wood, plastic? Okay.
Nice plastic?
Yeah, what's gonna happen, the best part of that is pretty much gonna be free for outlet myself,
Like the PVC, that good stuff, that like the fences. Yeah.
The only thing that might be up in the big would be the logo, the town seal would be
Sticker or something.
Yeah. vinyl type.
Yeah.
Well, my thing would be make it a little bit smaller, so you don't get pushed back.
Yep. Agree.
Well, what is
But
the
thank-
process?
thank-
Do they have-
this-
does that meet all the? That might not even meet all the sign requirements. Oh, we're exempt, right? We're exempt from. Huh? So we're exempt from they don't have to go in front of the planning board and get approval and all that.
Upstairs already,
No.
the paved already, so.
But they don't have any say to it, do they? Well, the building inspector and stuff like that, but there doesn't need to be a site plan review on the sign.
It's a big sign.
Well, I like what your guy did, but by putting a person next to it, it really shows, it puts a person next to it, it really shows, you know how you never have anything like in
Yeah,
Jaws?
and they
Get next to him so you can see how big the shark is when you took the picture, you have no scale.
they put minute bowl there too.
Okay, thank you.
Nice job. Thank
Dan,
you.
Dan,
Thank you for
this
doing
is
it,
great.
Dan.
Yeah.
Idea. Don't think we're being
No,
negative.
would
I think it's, the bigness is gonna scare people.
how does, so do you have like a dedicated iPad, or how do you change
Oh,
the
yeah.
change the sign?
Yeah, wireless.
It's wireless. Okay.
Controls inside of this stuff.
Okay.
So it'd be like, I don't wanna say it's an iPad, but it'd be some type of.
You could change it instantly, right? Okay.
That's terrific. I never thought about the wireless, but that's perfect, of course. Excellent. Yeah, I saw that. That's awesome.
Thank
Are they gonna be on both sides?
Good.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.
Nope. Just thanks for not
Thanks,
bringing
guys.
Mary Ann in. No, kidding. That's just a personal. I'd take some people out of, I'd have the Lawrence Grange guy come up. He's been here all the time.
Who is it?
What's Laurel? You're here for the Laurel Grange? Yeah, he's here for the Laurel Grange. I'd take him out of order right now. What are you guys here for?
Oh, they're next.
Okay.
They're next.
Okay.
They're next, then we'll take them.
Come on up, ladies. Good timing. You hit it perfectly.
Can I just? one
Yeah.
thing?
Go ahead.
I got your text and we were already through an email, it must have been through there, so we're not sure yet, but probably. Thank you.
So cultural council, what's the committee size?
Supposedly, there's no
No limit.
Up to 22, okay.
there's no limit. Oh, okay. That's a limitation.
That's good. So Marie is who we have in front of us. Hi.
Hi, Marie. How are you? Thank you for coming in.
So you're interested in joining the cultural council? Have you ever done any work like that before?
Not for the cultural council. I volunteer.
We think more people interested is great. That's good. We say the same thing, Marie, to lots of people. We hope that some of the funds that the council is donating out can go to local events and organizations, and that maybe, especially with the upcoming bicentennial and stuff, we can encourage more activities right in, especially at the time of the bicentennial, right in the town. So that's our.
Just something that we noticed earlier, before we've had a couple of appointments, that obviously the money comes from the state.
Yes.
And then you guys decide how that money is going to then be disseminated through some type of arts, through applications and whatever that process is. But we had noticed that our local cultural council is giving kind of stuff out of our town more.
Right.
Maybe the people weren't applying. I don't know who knows what it is, but we would just like to say again that we would like the things to go locally, if possible, obviously. Everybody has to be evaluated properly, obviously. And if they don't meet the criteria, then you can't award it. But that I would hopefully you put some emphasis on local stuff with the schools and stuff like that.
Sat on a meeting and that was the priority of this, that's the direction this meeting took. And I was happy to see that, where there was some people from Tewksbury and McClellan and great programs, but with the amount we had, the council had, I noticed they were voting more for local, if they could fund everything, they would. But
So you get
the first priorities were West Newbury.
So you get applications from Tewksbury and.
Yeah.
Wow.
Is that on the chair?
Well, that's why I was. You don't have to. I don't mean to put you on the spot.
From Sullivan State.
Interesting. So they just see everybody's council and they just put all these applications out and see which one stick.
And one of the requirements is you need to be a resident of Massachusetts, so you send out 50 applications and see how many get them back.
Wow.
Interesting, isn't it?
Doesn't do you any harm. Yeah, okay.
So you have to give your name to Mary for the. No, right now, so she knows.
Well, no, she has an application. It's more than a name.
I know, but just for right now, just for the meeting. I don't think she did what she did.
That's right, I didn't tell you, but I would like.
What?
Yeah, Wiley Linda.
What's your first name?
Linda.
Oh, Linda. Okay.
This is, you know Brian Young?
Yep.
This is his wife.
Okay. So these are 3-year appointments, correct, Mary? I think they are.
No.
So I move to appoint Marie Falzani and Linda Young to the Cultural Council for a term ending June 30th, 2020.
Second, that obviously that Linda fills out the application just so we have the pertinent information for you with Mary.
Yes.
And then you have to get sworn in by Mike, and then you have to take an ethics exam. That's just a state thing that you have to do online, and then have the results back to Mary.
Mary, when you get the
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Could you circulate it anyway so I can record it?
Thanks so much. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Yep, thank you.
Didn't
Thank
realize
Thank you for
there's a
volunteering.
boom on the cultural council this year.
Really?
We've never had.
Like,
I know. We've never had so many people. What are you guys doing?
you must have great. You must have great snacks or something.
I know. I want to come to your meetings. Thank you. Take care.
Okay.
Let's take the Laurel Grange out of
Yes,
order so we
yes.
can go home.
You must be Russ.
Yes.
Hi.
Russ.
Thank you for.
Sorry you had to sit through all that.
Oh, very interesting.
Okay.
Lucky you.
Russ Cobb from
Yep.
Burnett Street on behalf of Laurel Grange, 21 Garden Street. For many decades, at each public event, Laurel Grange has put out signs in front of the Grange Hall at the roadside and also in the island at the intersection of Garden Street and Main Street. These signs are put out about a half an hour before the start of the event, taken down immediately at the close of the event. About 8-10 years ago, we added a third location at the intersection of Indian Hill Street and Garden Street.
The other end.
Right.
So you get them from both sides.
Right.
If they were coming off on Scotland Road exit, if they were coming in, okay. Yep.
Tonight, even though it was indicated in the request, we're withdrawing that particular location from our request for approval. And that's mainly because we've been having trouble identifying and contacting the abutters. We've had some change of property owners and whatever, so we're gonna need more time before we.
The horse farm has changed, if that's.
Yes, and on the other side of the thing, the Selmans, I believe, are away or whatever, they're maybe visiting family.
Okay.
So, in any case, what we'll be looking for is permission to turn the Grange Hall and the island on Garden.
Yeah.
Move to approve.
Absolutely,
Second.
yeah.
Second.
Go ahead.
The only discussion I would have, okay, why don't we vote on it? 'Cause I have another question not related to this.
Yeah, I want to make a comment, but go ahead.
Discussion?
All in favor?
Aye.
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 So that, just to clarify, that takes off Garden Street and Indian Hill Street?
That's what he said,
Correct.
yes.
So that we're giving them permission to, anytime they have an event, to be able to put a sign up in front of the Laurel Grange and one at the intersection of Garden Street and Main Street. Anytime.
And as this is an agricultural thing, we're gonna.
This would be
You don't have to do it next year.
This would be
You're good.
ongoing, as you stated. So just so you know, though, we've had other people kind of somewhat abuse putting signs up all over, like landscapers and what have you. So we've had define who can put up signs. So just to be fair to everybody, so that's why this process.
It has nothing to do with
Nothing, yeah.
abuse that you guys have done or anything. We
You
just
guys
have
are,
to-
You guys are fine.
no
yeah.
issue.
We had to get a handle on it.
We actually discovered the process when we were looking for when trick or treat was.
Oh, good.
And Mary let me know about, well, actually, I found the thing posted in the website.
Mm-hmm.
I said, okay, we need to conform.
Yeah, good.
So, and Mary's been very helpful in terms of, like the setback when it's on a private property.
Mm-hmm.
We only took one side out,
Yep.
originally, but we put it too close to the road, so we moved it back to.
You're fine.
Okay.
You're fine. Now, how long you been with the Laurel Grange? Forever, right? For a while.
Have I been there?
Yeah, no, how long you been with the Laurel Grange? Do you know what the exact property line is?
Yeah.
How far it goes over to the station, the fire station?
Yes. It's actually very close to the fire station. What happened was when just before the station was built,
Yeah.
the Grange and the town did a land swap.
Mm-hmm.
We granted the town about 25, 30 feet wide on Garden Street. And in a rectangle, so you end up having an appropriate lot.
Mm-hmm.
And in exchange, we received the about the same size rectangle in the back of where the station is now. And so it was really like a land swap.
You gave us the front, and we gave you the back
Right.
of the Garden Street station.
Which turned out to be a swamp.
Sorry about that.
Howard Cole was instrumental in that. He was involved with the fire department.
Yeah.
And we like to do things
Mm-hmm.
too. So we made the land swap. We would like to let you know that the town has retained the option of reswapping at any time. So if you tear down the
Fire station.
fire station and want that swap in the back,
Yeah.
you can swap it. I don't believe the Grange has the right to swap it at all.
But so if we tear it down and say, hey, this could be useful to you guys, why don't we give it back to you and we'll take the swamp? Yeah.
You could do that. Yeah. You have the right legally to.
Because I always wondered that, and there was always talk that because maybe decommission that station and take it down, but it was like, there's always talk, you know what I mean?
I remember.
But there's always talk, oh, you can't do it, the Laurel Grange, we did it to this, and we don't own it to take it down and all that kind of stuff, but we do.
But it's a small lot.
Yeah, it's a very small lot. It comes
Yeah.
up, I think it comes up to like 3 or 4 feet on either side, I think.
Yeah.
You own the property
Yep.
and have the right to.
Do whatever we want.
Retrofit it if.
Or just leave it there, or take it down and do nothing.
Right.
Or have the right to give it back to you and take our land back.
Right. In the case that sometime in the future we wanted to transfer the land to somebody else.
Your land, the
Right.
the Laurel Grange
Right.
land.
We would have to come to you because
Because of that option.
portion is encumbered.
Right.
Oh, I see.
Because you had that right to swap
There-
that. We're not anticipating selling the land.
No.
Again, just let you know.
I just wanted to get the information about the.
All right.
The reason I think Mr. Kemper was asking was that there was a resident that had inquired about putting a dog park in a couple of different locations, and they had mentioned like 3 or 4 different locations, and one of them was between the Laurel Grange and the fire station. So it was just inquiries.
And they just assumed that we owned it. They didn't know anything.
They
any
asked.
better.
They asked who.
They asked, and we just said no. It's a Laurel Grange, and we own up to it.
Yeah, except for the parking on a couple of events, that field is just an acre.
Mm-hmm.
Is there for aesthetic purposes.
No, it's perfect. I love it. Okay, thank you, sir.
Thanks so much.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, have a great night, sir.
Next continuing sign saga request is
I move to approve the Maple Crest Farm sign request.
Second.
I thought we already did this.
So did I. He was in here.
I don't know why I said that. Th-
Oh, this is for June
This
and
one added the
July. Okay.
strawberries and stuff.
Oh,
Thank you.
okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Have we, you keep track of who we vote for signs?
Yes, she does.
So like all the Christmas tree farms, you have a list of who's come in and has. Oh. I just wondered, has Whitegate Farm, I've seen like a ton of signs from them. So, I mean, nothing against Whitegate Farm, but just to be fair to all the other farms that have come in. Maybe they're not aware that they should be doing that. No comment.
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't want to make any more comments on these signs.
Okay.
Seems like there's more paperwork for Mary every time we do. Next.
The next issue is related to, we had a problem 2 weekends ago with the annex. There was an event there, and your basic toilet back up and clog, and the individuals using the facility didn't know who to call, who to contact, and so that brought it to our attention that maybe we have to have some kind of a way to deal with a situation like that on a weekend. Do we have somebody on call? Do we have?
Doesn't DPW have somebody that's on call?
That was my, we pay somebody
I thought
extra.
I thought we already have that.
We pay somebody extra to be on call.
Not to do this.
Well, no, why? Give me a reason why.
I
if
don't
a
know. I'm
tree-
just saying
Well,
that.
if a tree falls on a roof, we have that, right? Then that person is called. If somebody throws a rock through a window and it's 50 below zero, and the police report it, there's somebody on call.
But Glenn, how does someone know unless someone
Well, no.
contacts the?
Well, I understand.
Yeah.
That. No. That's two different things.
Okay.
Joe said, "Don't we have somebody on call?" And I said, "I thought so. We pay somebody to be on call for emergencies for building and grounds over the weekend."
And normally, when there is an emergency for buildings and grounds, it's dispatch that calls them out.
Yep. So there's two things here. Yes, we have somebody. Then the next question is, should that person be called out at time and a half
To fix a toilet.
to fix a toilet? That's that. And then if we all decide, it should be about anything that happens to town facilities, then we say, okay, what's that process going to be? And then we have to put it on the form that while using your the facility on off hours, you need to call dispatch in the case of any emergencies. Right? So we want to. So that's the two things.
Yep.
That's the only,
But do we want to just to think it through? Just all other options. There might not be an emergent. Basically, if the annex is getting used, say 3 times on the same weekend, which is possible, there might be something in the the afternoon, evening, and then the next day. There's simply wear and tear, and there's running out of toilet paper or whatever the issue is. That do we want someone checking on that in the interim? The way that Pentucket has a custodian when someone's using the gym. Just throwing that out there.
no. Well, unless the person who's doing the broom pays for it.
Well, that's a possibility. Yeah.
I think that'd be a way. I mean, when would we need a custodian? Except for the emergency like that, so call somebody. I mean, they actually did have 30 people there, and the individual that notified of this actually went back to his house and got his own equipment and was trying to fix the toilets. I don't know if he did or not, but
Well, I mean,
Unsuccessful.
but that could have been a bad situation.
there's 30 people there.
Somebody should have been called, because this is a situation of potential, those things overflowing and so forth and so on. So that's what I meant about, so what do you want, that's why I was trying to give you the scenario, like, if a tree falls on the roof, of course, somebody's gonna be called an emergency. So if somebody throws a rock through a window and it's 50 below zero, and the police see it, they would call DPW, I guess, and say, hey, listen, somebody just threw a big rock through a window, you gotta go up and tape that up until Monday, so the heat doesn't all come out, or something like that. Does that happen? I don't even know. Or if somebody's renting a facility and say, hey, listen, all these toilets are, or the heat's not on, or something like that, what do we do? I mean,
Something like that, they should notify dispatch, and dispatch should call the DPW person on call for a situation like that.
I got it. But we have to make sure now that,
But do we want, see, the thing is, it works both ways. We don't want the person, if we put the number in the annex or whatever.
they could call because there's
they
not
could
enough tables.
It's not quite as warm in here as I like
air
it,
conditioners
or,
were, you know,
that, we don't want it to be
frame
abused.
I would frame it as an emergency, and the person they have to call is dispatch. So you've got another level of, is this an emergency or not, sitting at the desk.
But then, do we want to pay time and a half? So that's a minimum of 4 hours, I think it is, if they get called.
I mean, is that going to be that frequently? I
hope
don't know. Those
Well-
toilets,
Well,
those
see,
toilets
you,
do tend to
people,
break down.
you put the number out there, and people,
The number for dispatch?
The call, yeah.
the fact that they can call,
See,
yeah.
Joe, first of all, you're assuming that everybody's going to think logical and reasonable about their emergency levels. Okay, that's I think maybe your first mistake.
I do think that way.
Okay.
You're right.
So, if grandma is sweating a little too much during their baby shower,
Right.
okay, in July, and they feel it should be a little bit cooler in here, they might feel that might be an emergency. You and I, no.
That's where somebody makes a judgment.
Okay, but now we're giving another level to whatever. So then, I mean, there should be, I agree with you, but it's one of these fine lines where,
Well, I mean, I think 30 people, and that's what they had.
I agree with you. In that situation, somebody should have come out and fixed the toilets. Because we have somebody on call for those things.
Okay, but I'm thinking in terms of what's best for the town. Are we going to be running up a bigger overtime bill? And the annex is very popular for people to use because the price is right compared to a lot of other facilities.
So-
I'd rather discourage usage by making it slightly more expensive.
You put it on there and say, it's $150 an hour for non-emergency calls, or something like that. And they have to know ahead of time. I don't know. Yeah, okay. Is it gonna be more money? Yes. Is it gonna be a significant amount of money that we have to really watch it? I don't know that yet.
I think compared to other facilities that people can use, the annex is a pretty nice place. It has parking, it's
Air
safe,
conditioning now,
and
eating, nice. I agree.
and
So I think you're leaning
I mean, I think we're
do we even
we're at
have
the
facilities like? So then, if we want to pay, say, okay, you have to, and it's union people too. So you can't say, hey, it's $100. You have to give them a minimum. So for them to rent it, it's going to be $300, $400, $500.
Do you mind if I add something? Gary, the DPW director, contacted the school and got an application in their policy So what they do
We're
is
familiar with the policy.
Yeah.
they're required to hire a custodian for
Right.
the time that they use it, and I believe it's $40 an hour. And
That's on weekends.
and
yeah.
that's on weekends and at night, so that the custodian is responsible for making sure they get in the door and making sure it's
I know.
locked up and,
And we get the complaints, the custodian sits around, does nothing, they're paying them $40 an hour if everything goes right, and it's generally a nonprofit, they can't afford it, and they spent,
Okay.
$200 to $250 for a custodian to do nothing. That's basically what we hear.
okay.
You know what I mean? But that does alleviate any problems for people, and it's a moneymaker for the guys and for whomever. Do we even have, okay, so even if we offer that service, do we have enough people to be able to man that service?
No.
We don't even have
No.
we don't even have enough police to do details. We have to call other towns. Do you know what I mean with that? So I don't.
Right.
Yeah, I agree with you, but then I've seen it on the other end of. And we've had people in here about the. I don't know were you here or not about the use of facilities form down there when they were going to change it. They all started running to us. The town, using their facilities down there, they all came to us and said, "What are you talking about? I thought, we let them use our fields. Why can't we? Whatever." So that's the problem.
Okay.
I mean, an option could be raise the cost by $25 or whatever, and so the 1 out of 6 times that we get a call, we have to pay for call out for 4 hours. It gets covered through the aggregate.
I think it
usage.
needs to be a disclaimer on there, though. It has to be a true emergency. And
Oh, yeah.
if we're going to do that, and
Yeah,
you're going to be charged if you're going to call out.
Not
But it all depends on what you consider emergency. They can say, "Well, emergency is not. We don't have any heat. It's not hot enough. We can't fix it. It's freezing in here." Of course, that's an emergency. I have health issues. It always turns out to be an emergency. So that's when I said to you that we,
You're right.
toilets. Personally, I might not even call. I would have done what he did. Went home. I wouldn't even have called somebody because that's just me. Even if it wasn't, I would have went home and tried to fix it myself.
Right.
So, why don't we take this under advisement? Or you want to make a policy about it right now?
Well, I'd like to know, is this, do we have a sense that we're getting more and more usage or not? Or is it anecdotal? Do we really know that there's,
Has
that,
annex
that,
usage
that
increased?
5 years from now, it's
Why
5 years ago, it was
Why
much
is
less or
I
not?
think you need to go. Why is it increasing?
I thought we set some standards that
We
you'd
did.
have to be from
We-
the town.
We
and
did.
stuff.
But this-
That was only at one facility. That was only at the annex, correct?
good facility, and there are no real good alternatives.
What's happening there?
Well, right now, obviously with Fire Academy, that's a number of things.
Well, no. But I understand that, but who rents it? Birthday parties?
We have showers, but not a lot of those, but we have different organizations, obviously the Garden Club, the Boy Scouts, the Girl Scouts, you have Kentucky football, you have Kentucky sports.
Any non-residents?
No.
No, Mary doesn't allow it.
No.
Which
That
is
was a
good.
test.
No, I'm not serious. I'm serious. She doesn't. She said no to some people because they were non-residents.
That's
which is good.
correct.
Yeah, and sometimes you have regional facilities that.
Which is.
So it's
Yeah,
all,
res-
it's local,
residents
they're
involved.
local nonprofit groups.
We do have Lifeline screening coming in March.
They paid the $500?
They're paying the $500.
Next year it's gonna be $600.
Next year,
We
next,
keep on raising it because we don't think they're going to come, but they keep on. they
next
pay
year
it. We
it's
should have
gonna
had
be,
it $500
it's gonna
all
be
along.
$750.
We think they're going to say no, but they never do. They must make a lot of money on that.
So there are different groups, and it has, mainly because it has all the attributes you do have. That, number one, it's air conditioned now. Number two, it's a nice space. Number three, there's plenty of parking here. So if you're looking for some type of, if you have some type of.
But it's all local people, so they pay taxes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's not like your birthday, 16-year-old birthday party from somebody from Ipswich, which we were kind of getting before.
The majority, I don't think, local groups, meaning Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, Garden
And we want to have it
That's
available.
fine, yeah. But
That's
that's most of it? Okay.
and chess, and fire academy.
Let's try to work out.
What was it? At the end of the year, last year, I gave you a list.
Yeah, you did.
Of
180, was it?
410 events, something like that.
No, not at the annex.
Yes,
It was only 365 days.
because you had multiple events in a day. And those, you know, like
Swear to
Pilates.
you. I've got a stack on my desk. I got a file.
Yeah, I mean, you know, like we'll have 3 events in one day. I mean, you'll have Tai Chi and then Pilates and then an evening, you know, something like that.
The garden club at night and yoga during the day, whatever. Yeah, I got
Yeah,
you.
so I mean, there are a lot of events that, but since, and also it's increased a lot because we've reserved this room for basically board meetings.
Yeah.
So.
Right, yeah.
All the
Yogas,
yogas and
the
everything now
Mahjong.
all migrated over there. No, Mahjong is the one we let stay.
Oh, have you?
Yeah. Well, we have to wait a couple of days.
I don't think we want to tell them.
I mean, it's just.
Okay, so I guess we need to say something. If it's a true emergency, there should be some type of avenue that somebody gets called because it could turn into a problem. You know what I mean?
Okay, so
what
we
we
have
said.
to have something posted in the building.
Or update the application. I
Or
can
update
let
the
them know
application.
the 1213 over to the dispatch. For
Only with
emergencies
emergency.
only.
Only emergency. No heat, no air conditioning calls, only emergencies.
Well, if there was no
Toilets.
heat,
I know,
that
I
would
don't
be an
know.
emergency.
I know. I'm trying not to. I'm telling you, you're gonna get it. Aunt Betty is
No,
cold.
no, I know.
So should we check with the chief first? The police chief?
Why?
Let him know.
Let
I'm
them
not
know.
check with them. Just tell them.
Let them know.
And he knows who's on call, they know?
Yes.
Oh, hold on. Yeah, I would tell the chief and Gary and have them work it out, right? And make sure that the dispatcher screens it enough that it's a true emergency.
Yes, absolutely. That has to be part of it.
And if it happens, we would like to be notified, and how much overtime and how much it costs. And a separate,
I'm sure Gary will tell us.
no, but in a separate thing, so we just not, we have a good understanding of it.
Got it.
Okay.
Okay, so we're good on that?
Mhm.
Okay. Next item is to go over the timeline for the,
Chairman, can we take a 2-minute break?
sure.
Because I figure this is gonna go on for at least an hour.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I thought it was going to be 2 minutes.
No. And seeing what we did, so I preempted by sending out all what you want to talk about.
Preempt. You mean?
Preempt the long discussion.
Okay.
Joe. Said we got some extension cords.
I asked for one, I got all those. Isn't your meeting Wednesday night? You said Tuesday night.
Which,
For the nameplates?
it's Tuesday. It's tomorrow. Wait, we have a meeting on Tuesday and Wednesday.
Oh, you are?
Yes, so we need them tomorrow.
Okay. I'll have them ready.
Okay.
Promise. I heard it was Wednesday, because we've got
Well, it is, but it's both nights.
Okay, all right, thank you.
We have a lot of people.
We have the culture, now who is it coming Wednesday?
Where? In here?
Retirement Board is meeting here.
When?
And having their monthly meeting,
In the day?
the Essex County.
Oh. It's during the day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They close,
Okay.
yeah.
Oh. I won't be here at 4:30. Got you.
And there'll be no custodian here after to
So
clean
I
up.
might want to get here 5 minutes early to
You might want,
redistribute the chairs.
I'll make sure the tables are wiped down and kind of clean, they're having food and stuff.
Oh, ooh. Okay.
So I just wanted you to know.
Huh? Some.
Who's on that board? Is our old count still on that board?
She was. Yeah, but they can't touch this desk.
Why are they here? But I thought they were
Sorry.
allowing people to be here.
We'll make sure everything's fine.
Sorry, I don't know why I said that.
I'll put table
Good.
cloths or something.
What do you have to do here? Look,
Ooh.
something's going on here
Uh-oh.
that is something got underneath or something.
Uh-oh. Holy crap.
Something's going on. Okay,
I'll show Karen.
You want to do the calendar first? That might be pretty easy.
so why do we have this on the agenda? Because our new bylaw tells us we have to, correct? That's the reason why we're
It's
here?
not a bylaw, it's
The town manager bylaw?
It's a state law.
Legislation.
It's a state legislation.
State legislation tells us that we have to do this, correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
So if you want to look at the calendar first,
The Board of Selectmen shall be responsible for establishing and maintaining a written process for the preparation of the budget in the town. The Board of Selectmen shall annually issue not less than one written budget message, including fiscal guidelines and a timeline. So, the timeline is what we want to do.
let's do the
Okay.
timeline first.
Yep.
I mean, this is very similar to last year, so I don't know if anybody has any
So
change.
this is, you did this obviously, right?
Yeah.
And now, did you take into account the conversation that we had with the FinCom?
Yeah, and the feedback that we gave them, because they had numerous incorrect dates.
Mhm.
Now, what I did not put on here is FinCom booklet finalized, FinCom booklet printed. I mean, that's their
Mhm.
business.
Mhm.
So they can establish those dates when they see these dates. Any questions, comments?
Mm-mm.
So we good with this?
So I'm good with it if the FinCom's good with it. Or you want to just, this is our guideline,
Well,
they have to work within it.
I don't know, well, I didn't talk to the FinCom, so I don't know why they wouldn't be good with it.
Okay?
I mean,
So-
this is more us establishing dates based on our criteria, not their criteria.
Okay.
Could I ask one question?
Sure.
On February 12th, you've got the warrant closes, special article requests. That's all article requests, correct? Are all special?
Yes, yes.
So that's for the annual and for any
Annual, yeah,
special
That's
time?
just a terminology, special article, that's what the form's called.
Okay,
That doesn't mean special or annual town meeting, that means any meeting.
thank you for clarification.
Annual and special article requests.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's actually a good question. Should it be a week earlier?
What was the last year?
It was a week earlier, but
Yeah.
town meeting was a week earlier. So in term, we can do whatever we want. Mhm. Now, they do have an extra week on the back end, and the other consideration is the department heads to get together, whatever special article
You
request
need
they
to
have.
I would keep it at 12 since you have the week. It worked, we had no complaints last year. And I think with this
Well, I don't know how we're gonna, yeah.
I think
There
this
was
year,
also like a lot of
a lot
snow
of-
weeks, and I think they're a lot more organized.
okay, what is it? The 12th is a Monday. Why don't you have them, okay, so instead of having them the 6th, I would go then the 8th by noon. And
Yeah.
then she can, then they can be all ready and processed. You know what I
Okay,
mean?
yep. 2/8 by 12 noon. I'm fine. That way, if they have a meeting on the 12th,
We can have everything. Because that doesn't, yeah, it doesn't really do you any good having a restricted, I think that's maybe, I don't know.
That's good. All right. Budget message.
Move, I'd like to move this with those changes. with those
Second.
changes.
Second. Aye. I'm not going to read this because it's 2 pages long, but I'll just give a minor commentary on each of the sections. The first section on revenue and expenditure forecast, all that is the budget that the former finance director put together. So it's not just saying this year, it's saying this year, next year, and the following year. The government financial officer guidelines are actually have a 5-year projection, not 3, but I figured better to walk before we run, was my thinking at least. So, so the next thing is on the,
I've seen this 5 years is the recommendation. I think it's.
I think given where we're at, we don't have a town manager in place, we don't have a finance director, but we also need to take some steps. So the next thing on the cash flow policy, we've talked about free cash. So this is not.
What are you doing?
I'm talking about this.
You just gonna talk about that, or what does that pertain to?
We have to have a budget message that we give to all budget makers, as you just read.
Yep.
So this is the draft of the budget message.
Okay.
Unless if you want to make any changes or add stuff or delete stuff, I guess that's
okay.
what we're trying. That's what at least I would have in mind.
Okay.
So on the cash flow policy, this is what we've talked about with the finance committee. This is not meant to be a cash flow policy. This is just meant to say that we need to discuss this with the town manager, with the finance committee, and establish a fully developed policy on this concept. I would say, and I know this is part of the discussion, but it can't be an island on its own, because currently we pay for capital items with free cash primarily. That's been our recent practice. So that does need to have a fully developed and vetted and funded capital policy in order to actually do that. But that's more part of the discussion, but I did put that into the comments.
So I don't think that this cash flow policy is a budget message more than, I think it falls under the part of it where it's maybe a fiscal guideline.
Well, I think it is a budget message, because if they're putting together a budget, they need to keep that in mind to develop their budget.
If we want to go, if we want to,
this, it sure as heck is.
if we need a,
Yeah, no, but you just said it's not. You said, well, I don't want it to be, so is this the message, is this the message?
This is a message,
it's
not
just
a
a
policy.
recommendation.
Okay, so this is a
yeah.
recommendation
Yeah.
from us.
Yes.
Yes.
This is a message, not a policy. This is a message.
I understand what a message is. I want to just make sure that the message is clear that we're giving to them, not, you know what I mean?
Yep.
So the free cash is remaining unrestricted fund balance operating. So the first paragraph just tells you what free cash is, right?
Right.
Okay, to minimize the amount of free cash held, the spring, annual, and special town meeting should close with approximately
That paragraph is basically what
3% balance in free cash as a percentage operating budget. Projected excesses of more than 5% at close of fall meeting, including the fall month.
That paragraph is basically what Mr. McGrath's been talking about.
Yep. Capital items currently paid for with free cash must be part of the funded capital plan. Tax rate reductions will only occur when the general stabilization capital plan is fully funded through raise and appropriate. Tax reductions will only approve. So, so if we have excess free cash, we cannot use that.
Until
we cannot use that to reduce any tax rates. We own until we use that to make sure that our general stabilization capital plan is fully funded through the raise and appropriate fully funded through that year, because they're never fully funded. So fully funded, you know what I mean by
Yes,
that?
it's talking about that year, yes. Yeah, yeah.
Annual.
The annual thing, because they're never.
Yep.
Okay.
So in other words, we're not gonna say, say there's 2 million in free cash. We're not gonna give back $1 million to reduce the tax rate and then raise the tax rate $1 million to fund stabilization. That would be
An exercise.
stupid.
No, the free cash would go into stabilization.
Until, yes.
Until that threshold is met, that the
Exactly.
funding of that particular budget cycle, and then the rest of it would be, given back to the tax rate.
Yep.
Okay. I have to think about that.
Okay.
Yeah, and again, this is not meant to be the policy.
It's just something to
No,
think about,
Well,
yeah.
oh, guys, no, it's not something to think about. This is the message that we're sending to the town.
Yes. Yes.
So it's
Yes.
very serious.
Yeah, yes. This
Okay.
took me a whole day to write this.
Well, you should write writing, not musty. Okay.
Moving on.
Yeah.
Okay, so then the general stabilization and the school stabilization kind of go in tandem with the free cash policy because they are linked. So I'm just saying that the general stabilization, so that's the big one, it needs to be fully vetted because right now we don't have good cost estimates, we don't have good timelines, so therefore we don't have good numbers. And I think this is what the Finance Committee was telling us also, so I think this is, I think it's the same thing they were saying. Any questions on that?
I'd like to go back to the so with this message, okay, if we had free cash of 1.5 million going into Springtown meeting, you're able to have articles out of free cash, and then whatever's left over, fund stabilization with it, and then bring it down to that three.
That's funding stabilization from free cash, free stabilization should be on the tax rate.
I would agree with that.
Yeah, I mean I think that's why we need a 5-year plan to show.
I understand that. I would agree with that, but this gives us an out of not having it on the tax plan, allowing us to use it on the stabilization.
How's that?
Because any money that's left over, we have to fund stabilization with it before we give the people a tax break. With that, I'm agreeing. I'm not saying no to that. But you know what I mean by that?
Right.
So we can say, oh, we have $1.7 million in free cash. Let's not put it in a raise and appropriate this year because we know we're going to have the free cash.
But there's a thing that we just heard about that is the giant elephant in the room is the school.
That's what I was just going to say. The reality is the school building thing is just going to wipe it out anyway. And that'll take care of our free cash so-called problem.
Well, it's not a problem, but you understand. So part of your, okay, let's go to that one then. I just don't want, this seems like a bunch of fancy ways of getting around to what I want to do, but I have to understand it a little bit better.
No.
They only got this today.
Yeah, I mean.
I got this literally today, so
Well, that's what you got your packet today, right?
No, I got my packet over the weekend.
You did? I was here.
Huh?
Okay.
No.
Okay.
Was my packet on my desk when you came in this morning?
I have no idea.
I
It
came
was
in.
there, it was there Sunday afternoon when I was here.
Yeah, I came in Sunday afternoon. Hey, so you're the one who left the copier on.
No.
Remember I was complaining when I came in yesterday? The copier light was on? So,
Okay. This is an attempt to do what the Finance Committee has been talking about, but I think there's only agreement to do that if we, at the same time, fund the capital plan, because you can't do that without funding the capital plan. I mean, you're never going to get agreement to that. So it's to do what you want, I think. It's called compromising.
well, I have to read it to be able to understand if it's even a proper compromise, don't I?
Okay.
Okay, what else? Did you have anything else to say?
Well, on the stabilization fund, the general stabilization fund, it's just saying to vet it, proper numbers, proper timeframes. School building stabilization fund, it's basically saying what they told us tonight, that when we've got a plan that's taken us to today, and we probably should do nothing further other than to continue to execute the plan until we actually have firm numbers, which will be in the summer or the fall. And then we can finalize how
You
we'll.
just talked about you said the general stabilization fund. You
Right.
mean
Then I went to the school one.
the school one.
I said the general one, we just need to have it vetted in terms of dollars and time frame. And the school,
How are we looking on that, Archie? I mean, I know it's better than it used to
I'm not happy with it.
be. Okay.
It's, how are we looking at what?
The capital improvements plan.
It,
I've kind of stayed out of that because I thought there was going to be something coming back to us.
The problem is we can't get firm
we
numbers.
can't get
That's the
good
problem.
numbers, ever. It's very difficult to get people to say, okay, 2 years from now, I'm gonna need a new boat, or whatever. And, because then they look at the boat and they say, well, maybe the boat is okay, or we need a new plow, or whatever it is. The numbers are really, it's very hard to get, and the only way this works is if the numbers are really good. Otherwise, it's garbage in, garbage out. And
There's two departments that are primary people that contribute to this. I'm going to take a run at one of them, see how it goes. Based on that, maybe we can work on the other one. I'll let you know.
okay.
So, I mean, the school building one, we've got to know what the number is before we can do any more. I would say we should, we've established the practice to raise and appropriate expired debt, so we should continue that. And then the bottom one on here, Glenn, reconciling cash and receivables. If you were going to pick out something that's maybe not a budget message, that might be it. But that's something that's been identified. So that's been identified by our auditor, and we've got a change in the finance area, how it's being managed. And we're going to have to rely more on the town accountant and more on the treasurer collector. And this has been a problem in the past, so that they need to work together on this.
Nobody could disagree with that.
I wouldn't mind trying to. Do we have a good understanding of it?
Of what, Glenn?
The reconciling cash and receivables? before we?
The auditors, have they, they've been in, haven't they?
So when we hand this thing over to the town manager?
Yeah.
The what?
Okay.
You wanna hand something clean over
Okay.
to the town manager?
What? I didn't hear you.
No, I'm saying, I'd like to have a good understanding, and, you know, we've had a few problems, you know what I mean, that when we hand it over to the town manager, it's,
Clean.
yeah.
Well, and
Best we
there's
can.
also, there's I don't know if you looked at it, at the very end, there's a clause that they have to reconcile, and if there's differences that are determined, that they need to get together and reconcile those differences, and then they need to report that to the town manager. So it's
That
exception,
was the last thing.
it's exception reporting. It's not that they need to report it every month. When there's an issue, here's the issue, and here's how it was resolved.
Mhm.
This was a lot of work. What?
I want to dissect. Do we have to vote on this tonight?
It-
It's a draft form.
It's in draft form. If we don't vote on it tonight, we have to vote on it the very next meeting because
No, without a doubt.
Andy's got to put this out with his, he wanted to do it last time. You know, we said we would do it this meeting. So he needs to put out both a budget message and criteria to the department heads. So we could be holding up the process of putting the budget together.
Now, what about in this particular, the town manager legislation about the process of preparing the budget? Are we gonna get down to giving them some guidelines of stuff like, you know, we don't wanna keep it within 2.5%, those type of thing, you know what I mean? Are we gonna even get into that, or give them some direction in that respect, or ask them to do it? I'm hearing that it's a by need. Are we doing a zero-based budget this year? Or the FinCom, didn't they didn't call it a zero-based budget when they came in, but they said that everybody's gonna have to, you know, have written.
Right.
That's basically a zero-based budget.
That's what they said, yeah.
I mean, they didn't say
They didn't
zero-based
use those words.
words,
You're
but-
totally right, Glenn. They didn't use those words, but that was the intent, it seemed
Yeah.
like, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think we should keep.
Are we, is that type of message, you know what I mean?
We could say that if we want.
No, I'm just thinking, is that what people are looking for? Because that's generally the kind of message we give. I'm not saying not to give this. I'm just saying on top of it, like a message
We can,
statement saying
we
that,
could.
hey, listen,
No, I would agree with that.
We could.
okay. That was the notes. What else did I have? The board shall be responsible for establishing and maintaining a written process for the preparation of the budget in town. So, what is that written process?
It's the process that the finance directors put out. I mean, it's the same process.
Okay, so that's good. We feel
Yep.
comfortable still doing it that way.
I am.
Yeah,
So
and,
do- so
and
me
we,
too.
we're,
I'm not-
well,
I just
and
wanna
we,
make- if we're
and,
gonna do it, we want to make sure we do
and
it right.
we've established a timeline when things are
Yep.
done.
The Board of
That's,
Selectmen
yeah.
shall annually issue not less than one written budget message. Okay, so this is the budget message
Right, and there's the timeline.
and the timeline, including fiscal guidelines, which the fiscal guidelines could be, say, within 2.5% or zero-based budgeting, or what do you?
Right, I mean, we've kept the average tax bill increase under 2% on average in the last 5 years. There was 1 year a little over, 1 year was a little under, but on average it's been under 2. So, I mean, I think that's what we should strive for, to continue to do that.
Okay.
Now, obviously, when the school hits, that won't be the case, but that's in the future.
Yeah, but we're only, I understand that, but this is for this budget.
Yeah. That's what I said,
I
it's
mean,
in the future.
those guidelines in stuff, message is going to be different.
Yep.
In those years.
Yep.
Do you want to send a message out saying that we have, on average, kept it from 2% and under, and we would still like to see that happen?
Yes. Average tax.
I mean,
not-
that's
not-
a different, that's a different
because
thing.
we've,
Yeah.
Because we've paid it down also.
Yeah.
So that's not, yeah,
2% of the tax rate
Tax
is,
rate, not the budget, the
is,
tax rate.
is a different thing than the budget as a whole.
Yeah, not the
Correct,
budget,
because
the tax rate.
the budget's gone up, and then we were able to draw it down with free cash to keep it.
Well, you also have
2%.
No, but new growth and,
It's a bunch of
yeah.
different things.
So I would say average tax rate increase of under 2%. And if you want to add a sentence on zero-based budgeting, I'm open to doing that.
Yeah, I don't know how to,
I have a note on that, but that's what they were, maybe they didn't know what they were talking about, but it sounded like,
what
to
they
me,
said.
that's what they were talking about. Everybody has to justify their money.
okay, let's phrase it like that. Instead of saying
Where
Because that's like
all
building a
budget,
budget over again.
all budget requests are justified.
I would use the word significant requests. I mean, you don't have to, a zero-based budget, I mean, certain things are.
Zero-based budget makes you, you know.
I know, but there's certain things that, okay, we're not gonna like pay for the electricity. I mean, certain things, we don't have to justify
it's not.
paying for the oil and things like that.
Paying for the
yeah.
electricity is when, no, but that's a pretty good thing, because where you say, hey, I have budgeted $10 for my electricity, and then you would say, hey, okay, hey, what have we paid in the last 5 years? Okay, we've only paid $7. What are the projections this year? Well, our projections that we're seeing is it's going to only go up by 7 or 8%. So, okay, well, you've been over budgeting for the last 5 years, and that's an over budget. So maybe you need to be 9% rather than 10%. Excuse me, $9 rather than $10. I think that's what they mean by justification, not to spend it, but just getting a better idea of exactly how much you really need, rather than just saying, okay, yeah, it's $10 because it's always been $10. Then I raise it.
Yeah, 2% or whatever.
Yeah, I
yeah.
think that.
Okay, okay.
I'm hoping that that's what they were talking about, because that's what I'm hoping. Because I honestly don't believe any of the department heads are just, spending money. I think they're just trying to get a better idea of how much it is. Can I? I'm not trying to change it much. It looks fine, but I honestly have to dissect it more.
Okay, we're kind of.
Next meeting. Is that okay?
So the next meeting is the 11th
Of December.
of December, which we're starting to be the week before Christmas, and you've got the 2 holiday weeks in there, and then the budget is going to be due on January 8th. So it's a little tight. I think Andy was here, rather say like.
Mm.
I think that's a little tight.
Mr. Chairman, can you, so I don't forget, we need to talk about our meetings in December
Okay.
at the end.
Okay.
So we can have them posted. Okay, let's move on for a second, and then we can come back to this.
Okay. Table that item for the moment. I'm okay with it.
You might have gotten it earlier than I have. I have a bad feeling. I have a feeling you did. Well, I don't print it. When I came back here this afternoon.
I can't help that.
When I came here this afternoon,
No, actually, you got it before Archie did.
Mary printed it for me.
I read it on my phone. Next item is an update on our process to hire and install the new town manager. Any updates on the evaluation process yet?
Yeah, sure, I could update that at any point in time. We have narrowed it down, and we are beginning interviews, preliminary screening interviews tomorrow night, and they should be completed on December 9th. So I was going to say this under future agenda, but I definitely need to have an agenda item on the search on If all goes well, we could actually do interviews starting anytime we want on January 7th or later. I mean, that might be something you might want to think about that week because this is a little bit more involved than a finance director interview. So we might have to do it over, depending on how the applicants are, they might have to take a couple of different evenings.
Can we do it on off meeting nights? Or do you not want to do that?
Well, an off meeting night is January 1st.
No.
We have a meeting on the 8th.
Well, January 1st is New Year's.
January 1st is January 1st.
Yeah, but that's an off, that week we wouldn't have had a meeting. We do have a meeting January 8th. And then next week is Martin Luther King Day, and then we have a meeting on the 22nd. So it probably would have to be a lot of Monday.
Oh, man. I'm free after the 1st. Anytime. It's up to you guys.
Yeah, maybe like the 3rd or 4th. I mean, I'm not saying we're going to be ready yet. Just try to get it out.
Well, why don't we put it on the 11th and we can get some, you'll have a better idea and we can maybe have some strong dates on that.
Yeah, I mean, I would know on the 11th.
Oh, you mean wait till the 11th of December?
Yeah, I
Oh,
would
okay.
know then because it's just the only thing that would happen then is potentially somebody would get it.
So let's wait till the 11th and then schedule the interviews then.
Okay.
It might have a, it might, they might have an effect on it also. They might not be able to make it.
Everything has to play back on them too, yeah.
You mean them being available?
Yeah.
Usually if you ask a candidate if they can come in for a job like that, unless they have something that's really, really important on that. So we want to continue to talk about the progression to the town manager transition other than the search.
So is that it on the search?
How many did you get?
Oh, okay. I do want to say, I know I said it last time, but we really, the time we took, we have a very good committee. Very strong people and very diversified. There was a total of 52 in total. 37 that I'll call qualified when you eliminate the assistant manager from academics. 37, so,
That's a high-stress job.
yeah,
I wouldn't want it.
37 is a good number. I know a number of other communities, they didn't get 37 applications. So we really kind of stretched. We just didn't put an MMA ad out there. We tried to target and identify people, and we did get somebody through a couple of people through that targeting that are on our final list to interview. We got somebody through a word of mouth recommendation. So I mean, we're out there working.
Good.
So I think it's important we need to start talking about the transition and how things are going to change physically and maybe employees and all that kind of stuff. We need to do that soon. Would it be advantageous to have like somebody talk to? Well, do we all agree that it doesn't really matter who we hire. Do we all agree that if we hire a town manager, which we have to now, that some physical changes to the building will occur?
Minor. I mean, I think that we no longer have a finance director, and we do a town manager. So they have to have a desk to go to. The finance area kind of changes a little bit. That it's a little downsized without the finance director. So that, maybe what we should do is have an employee meeting and update everybody on the search and where we're at and the things we're thinking about.
When can we do that?
How about next Monday?
At what time?
In the morning.
Yeah, in the morning. Okay. 9.
Next Monday at 9? Is everybody here on Mondays?
Would that be the best
You're never gonna
day?
get,
Yeah,
Monday
you're not
or
gonna get.
Wednesdays.
you're never gonna get a day with everybody.
Yeah.
No. So why don't we, yeah, that sounds good to me. And then what are we trying to accomplish? We want to update the employees on the search. I think that's important. And talk to them about some changes that could be happening in the building. I think that's important, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Can you post it and then tell everybody first thing in the morning so that they can plan it?
Yeah.
And the announcement's going to say what? You want to talk to Mary about that? Because that announcement's very important.
I'm sorry?
Would you like to talk to Mary about the announcement that comes out? Because I think the announcement's important, how it's worded for the employees that, you know, we want to talk to them about some changes, but I don't want people thinking that all of a sudden, you know, everybody's going to lose their job. And, you know, I'm not being facetious, but you know what I mean by that.
Right.
Sometimes wording's important.
Right. Yeah, I'll be glad. I had not
You know,
thought about
don't you
that.
think it's important the way we?
Very important.
Yeah.
I'll do that.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, they're not.
Because we've handled this through every bit of the process. I think has been handled extremely well with the focus groups, with the survey we did, how we kept the employees involved right from the beginning, and we cared what we thought. We listened to them, and we integrated that into the position. And to now the search committee, how great it's going. I want to make sure that process is still rolling right out through the whole.
How long do you think the meeting will take?
Half an hour.
Half hour?
We'll have muffins and coffee.
Donuts?
Donuts. No, I don't make donuts. I make muffins. Scones. Danish. Enough things people can get fat about. If the police are coming, we'll get donuts.
Whatever.
Okay. I make a motion to approve the invoice warrants. All in favor?
Aye.
Second. All in favor?
Stay. No, you two are going to follow up meeting assignments with everybody, and I'm going to go over this again. The message.
Yeah, to give Andy the budget message if we voted tonight, and to do we just talked about Monday.
Okay. On item 3, I have to be just made aware when the grant is ready to be, the greening community report is around to sign. We want to have the facilities request mention that item 8 that emergencies should be called into the dispatch, and the dispatch should be aware of which DPW person is on call, and hopefully that they can screen the level of the emergency so that we're not getting just minor annoyances rather than true emergencies when it's an off-hour problem at, for example, the annex or the town hall. What else? To announce what we just said about a meeting with the employees about what's happening with the town manager next Monday. Am I missing anything?
Rent the building. One thing that we were going to ask the chief and Gary to get together to make sure that happens. You know what I mean?
Oh, right.
follow up on meetings. No, the only follow-up on the meeting, we can do it on future agenda, but no, are you done with that?
Yeah.
I think so. We just need to set out, if we are on placing on agendas, we need to set out a schedule for, our December meetings, because we have one on the 11th, and the next scheduled one, if we're doing that, would be on Christmas, I think. So we
I
have,
think we're closed.
yeah, I think we need to decide, what we're going to do. So that week, I guess the, payroll would be due, assuming?
Well, I
Are
think
you
if-
away, Archie, in between there?
No.
if the payroll is left on the table like it is normally, we can sign it, and when the town accountant comes in, if she's working on the 26th, it'll be here signed.
So,
That'd
so
be my
then we would not have, we would only have one meeting in December, and that would be on the 11th.
I would agree with that, with the caveat that if the chairperson sees items that come up, leave it to his discretion if there's something that cannot wait till January 8th.
But we potentially could be having a meeting on the first week of January for the
The 3rd or 4th.
for the town manager stuff. So if there's something that important that we would have to vote on, we wouldn't have to wait to the 8th. We could have it that week too. You know what I mean?
Okay, yes, just,
Do something housekeeping.
Yeah, I think
Because there'll be a lot of people out. There's not a lot going on. You taking any time off?
I was hoping to, actually. I have a son coming in
Yeah. So why don't we do it that way? And then
the week between Christmas and New Year's.
Yeah, we normally.
Sound good?
Yep.
And it will be our responsibility to come in and sign it in between Christmas and New Year's,
okay.
the payroll and warrants and stuff. And if we have any problems, we're chasing people down.
Right, if we have a question. But I think, again, if something comes up, we have to leave that in the hands of the chairperson. If he thinks it's an emergency or an extreme importance to call a meeting, it could be the week before.
And so we would want to,
But I'd make everybody known too that we're having only one meeting. The selectmen are having one meeting in the month of December. That is on the 11th.
Right,
So the only thing that would pop up would be an emergency. Not, oh, we have to meet because this grant we had on my desk is now due next Tuesday.
Right, because Tuesday's going to pass.
Yeah, you know what I mean? So I would send out and say.
that's a good point, Glenn,
Just
yeah.
send something out and say the selectmen will only be meeting once in December. So if there's anything that you need to have them vote on or anything like that, it has to be in. And then if we have to have an emergency meeting, we'll have it.
Because everyone always says their thing is an emergency.
Right.
Yeah.
And we just got it last Tuesday. and
I have
it's done.
the 2 liquor licenses that we'll have to deal with, and 3 used car dealer
On the online.
licenses as well, yeah.
Those are, that's just
That's normal.
That's normal.
Huh?
That's normal.
And that
Yeah.
should take like a minute.
I'm hoping to get everything in by then. But yeah, I think I.
Do you have everything from the applicants?
No.
Well, because if they don't have it to you before that, they won't have a license until January. I mean, you can tell them that.
Yeah, I'll have to crunch a little on that.
Okay.
We don't have to do it when we want.
Okay.
And it should be in January.
What's that? Oh, yeah.
Okay, you ready to go back on the other thing?
Yep. So
Free
can I
cash.
make one comment first? I agree, so, to expand on what you said, I would add 2 sentences to the first section of revenue expenditure to employ a zero-based budget process where significant budget requests are justified and with the objective of having a average tax bill increase of under 2%.
But the budget doesn't have control of that if we're playing with it at the other end. I don't mean playing with it in a bad way. So.
No, in other words, if you're saying we're having a zero-based budget, you're then going the other way around and saying, and we want to come up with the whole idea of a zero-based budget is that you have absolutely no idea what things are going to cost, and then you find out, okay, we need $700.
It's like starting a new company.
Yeah, we need $700 to run the town, and then you come up with the $700.
So let's not
If
say
we
zero
if,
base, but say something like they said.
What's that?
no, but Joe, if you put in the same sentence that you want everything to come out to be
So
at
just
2%,
say-
those are at cross purposes.
So just say a budget
Yeah, that's
process
true.
where all.
You're giving them the end result.
Exactly. Maybe it's
So take
maybe
that.
it,
1%.
maybe the budget goes down 2%.
So
Yeah.
take that sentence out and don't use the word zero base, but just employ a budget process where all significant budget, what we said.
No, that's good. Yeah.
Employ a budget process where all significant budget requests are justified. You're welcome.
Even, but put it. I'm sorry. People will say, well, I always even so that they understand that we're talking about recurring expenses, not new requests, but they have to justify, like you say, the lighting or whatever. Okay.
Free cash is the remaining unrestricted funds from operations of the previous fiscal year, including unexpected and so then it's, and the unexpected free cash from the prior year. Okay, so obviously, actual receipts in excess of revenue estimates shown on the tax rate gap sheet. Unexpended amounts in the budget line item, the calculation of free cash is based on the balance sheet of 2000. Okay. The Board of Selectmen, the town manager, and the finance committee will establish and fully develop policy on the. So this is the message, and then we can all develop a policy with these guidelines.
On this, that's regarding this cash flow part of it. Yeah. Not this. This is the message. They need to do that.
No, the cash flow policy.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, that's fine.
You okay?
Do you want to use the word policy?
It's in here.
Yes.
No, I didn't add anything to
Okay.
anything. It's in his document.
Yeah.
Right.
So I move to approve the FY19 budget message to include the amendment that I just read about 2 minutes ago.
Second.
Which
Employ a budget process for all significant budget requests.
yeah, which includes the timeline. We already voted on that,
We already
correct?
voted on that.
And so we've done our fiscal responsibility here?
Yep. You okay?
Yeah.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Do you want me to give you an edited one, or you want to
Yes.
add that sentence?
No, I would prefer you to give her an edited one, then she could forward that edited one to the FinCom
Well, to the finance
director
treasurer collector, sorry,
and the FinCom.
and the FinCom. Well, the treasurer collector really should be the disseminating person that should go out to like everybody from him.
Okay.
If he's here.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Excuse,
What?
Yes.
I really don't want to do this, but attached to your calendar was an email from the FinCom.
Yep.
And they're asking for your input. They would like to update the article.
The article request form.
Is it the article
to
request
say,
form?
To say, it's our, just to clarify, it's our article request form, it's not theirs. But that's okay, they hijacked it for their page, that's fine.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Oh, no, it's we control
Okay,
the articles.
So what's the point though?
The question is,
Well, about a sunset
yes. and so-
provision.
So yes.
Yes.
Yes, when people submit articles, they should include that information. So yes, she should add that to the form.
So she said she wants to know if to add to the form when should this article be sunsetted? How long will the project take?
Yeah.
Yes.
So
That line
ask
is
those
okay to
questions.
add.
Yep.
Yeah, those are fine.
Thank you.
Those are good ones. So my motion to adjourn is still on the table, gentlemen.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you and good night.